Chapter 968. What kind of ability was that flash of golden light? The reason why Master could not take a step back seems to be related to that golden light. Old Wu's beady eyes darted around, but he could not figure out the origin of that protective golden light no matter how hard he tried. He would not know that the golden light was the light emitted by the god-vanquishing shield, to protect its master. As a matter of fact, after the first ring of the bell, Ningfan already noticed that something was wrong. The sound of the ancient pine bell contained extremely pure Buddha power. This Buddha power was incompatible with the ancient devil bloodline in his body, as if the two of them were natural enemies. If others hear the bell, they would at most be repelled. However, Ningfan was different. He was an ancient devil. Buddha and devil had always been enemies since ancient times. To him, this faint bell actually had an invisible destructive force that was enough to dissolve the ancient devil cultivation base in his body. If it wasn't for the god-vanquishing shield automatically protecting its master by emitting a golden light, Ningfan would not just be repelled by the bell. His ancient devil cultivation base might even be damaged by it. This ancient devil child of yours is quite interesting. You actually did not take a step back under my seventh grandpa's devil-vanquishing bell. Suddenly, a surprised voice came from within the ancient pine tree. Old Wu did not know who the person who spoke was. He was puzzled. Zen Master Songhua, on the other hand, had some understanding of this ancient pine tree. As soon as he heard the ancient pine tree's words, he did not dare to be negligent. He hurriedly rose to his feet, put his palms together and saluted the ancient pine tree. Disciple Songhua greets 7th Uncle Master. This Songhua addressed this person as Uncle Master. Could it be that this person is actually Taoist Musong's senior brother? How would I not know that Taoist Musong has a senior brother? Old Wu was shocked. He also hurriedly rose to his feet and saluted the ancient pine tree, not daring to be negligent. Ningfan, on the other hand, frowned. A green light flashed across his eyes, and he immediately saw through the origin of the person in the pine tree. The person who spoke was actually the tree spirit that was born from the ancient pine tree's years of cultivation. While speaking, a human face suddenly appeared on the ancient pine tree. It looked at Zen Master Songhua, and then at Old Wu and said with a frown, "Oh, it's the little martial nephew of Songhua. Didn't your master promise us 7 brothers that no outsiders would be allowed to enter the forbidden area of the Wood Island? Why did 2 outsiders come to the forbidden area today? Not only did they disturb my sweet dreams for no reason, they even let me see the most hated ancient devil in my life." When the human face mentioned the word ancient devil, it glared at Ningfan ferociously. Its expression was filled with disgust. These 2 are not outsiders, but... Zen Master Songhua was about to explain something, but the face said impatiently, "Enough, enough. You don't have to talk nonsense with me. I know. How could I not know? These 2 must be related to your Wood Island. That's why they were allowed to enter the forbidden area. I can tolerate this beady-eyed little guy wanting to enter the forbidden land to gain enlightenment, but that guy over there is an ancient devil. If he wants to gain enlightenment under my tree, there's no way he can do that. Not even 10,000 times. Even if it's your master's order, you can't. Little ancient devil, I'll give you 3 breaths. Get the hell away from my ancient pine body. Otherwise, don't blame me for amplifying the power of the bell and embarrassing you." That face was extremely impolite, and wanted to drive away the ancient devil cultivator. Zen Master Songhua's face immediately showed a troubled expression. He did not expect that his 7th martial uncle would be so overbearing. He actually did not allow Ningfan to gain enlightenment in this forbidden area. It was no wonder that the ancient pine trees in the 7 forbidden areas of the Wood Island were personally planted by Taoist Musong and nourished with Buddha power every day. Only then did they give birth to tree spirits. The 7 ancient pine trees in the forbidden areas were 7 tree spirits. Their cultivation bases might not be much higher than Zen Master Songhua's, but their seniority was extremely high. They could be considered as witnessing the whole process of Musong's Dao attainment. They even provided assistance to Musong. That was why Taoist Musong addressed them as his senior brother. In terms of seniority, they could be considered as the martial uncle of Songhua and the other disciples of the Wood Island. What should I do now? Master ordered me to bring Rain Lord to the forbidden area to gain enlightenment, but 7th Martial Uncle did not agree to it. Just because Rain Lord is an ancient devil? In the past, didn't there also fake ancient devils who came to the Wood Island to gain enlightenment? Aren't you quite tolerant towards those fake ancient devils? Why are you so harsh towards Rain Lord? Just because he's a true ancient devil and you're a Buddhist cultivator? 7th Martial Uncle, can you make an exception for me? One breath. 7th Martial Uncle, this is Master's idea. Master wants to. 2 breaths of time. 7th Martial Uncle. 3 breaths. Fine. Ancient devil brat, you're not going to leave? If you have the ability, then go ahead and see if you can withstand my demon-subduing bell. The human face seemed to have lost all its patience. It snorted coldly and went back into the ancient pine tree. Upon seeing that, Zen Master Songwa let out a bitter smile. He felt rather helpless and apologized to Ning Fan, who was standing at the 82nd step. I'm sorry. I didn't think that 7th Martial Uncle would reject your identity as an ancient devil so much. I'm afraid you won't be able to approach this pine tree. What he meant was, Rain Lord, oh Rain Lord, you don't need to continue walking forward. Just retreat 100 steps. One had to know that if these tree spirits insisted on not allowing someone to enter the forbidden area, then even a celestial king old monster might not be able to force his way to ancient pine. Why does fellow cultivator Songwa need to apologize? Didn't your 7th Martial Uncle tell me to continue walking forward if I have the ability? I believe that I have some ability. This distance of 82 steps is not my limit, so how can I retreat? Ning Fan looked at the ancient pine tree expressionlessly. Zen Master Songwa respected this pine tree, but he did not have the slightest bit of respect for it. This tree spirit had been targeting the ancient devil with every word he said, rejecting him and being rude. Ning Fan could forgive a mere tree spirit for Taoist Musong's sake. However, he had obtained Taoist Musong's permission to come to this place to gain enlightenment. A mere tree spirit could dream of chasing him away. With that in mind, Ning Fan's body flashed again, and appeared at the 64th step of the ancient pine tree. Dong! Another bell chime resounded between heaven and earth out of nowhere. This time, the bell chime was 30% more powerful than the first chime. This time, Ning Fan's body flashed with golden light again, and he blocked the bell chime without taking even half a step back. Seeing this, the human face emerged from the ancient pine tree again, and said with a cold snort, "Not bad, little devil. You can even block the bell chime that I used to increase your power. If that's the case, I won't hold back anymore. If I don't send you flying 100 steps away, humph. My Buddhist name, Arhat Muchi, will be written backwards from now on. Buddha Talisman, Buddha light illuminates all." However, as soon as the human face opened its mouth, gusts of pine wind suddenly rolled up around the ancient pine tree. Within the pine wind, there were rays of green light flowing, condensing into a series of strange runes, constantly circling around the ancient pine tree. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly solemn. He had a vague feeling that the Buddha talismans circling around the ancient pine tree were somewhat similar to the devil talismans of the ancient devil clan. Unfortunately, these Buddha talismans were a little blurry and illusory. He could not see them clearly, and he did not know what they looked like when they were clear. These Buddha talismans shone with countless rays of Buddha light. As soon as he was covered by the Buddha light, Ning Fan actually felt his magic power becoming sluggish. It was as if there were countless mountains pressing on his shoulders, making it difficult for him to move even an inch forward. His body flashed and he moved forward again. However, this time he could only move less than 10 steps forward because of the heavy pressure. Dong! A bell chime that was several times stronger than the previous chime resounded across the sky. The sound of the bell was so loud that it made Zen Master Songwa's and Old Wu's ears buzz. However, Ning Fan still did not take even half a step back. He was not afraid of the bell at all. What a great ancient devil child. You still don't want to retreat? Good. I'm going to show you my true strength now. Dong! The pressure around him became stronger and stronger. Ning Fan moved again and took 5 steps forward. The bell chime rang again, and he used the God Exterminating Shield to protect his body. The human face's expression became even uglier. Interesting. This is really interesting. I'm going to let you witness 7th Grandpa's abilities that are never taught to others. Dong. This time, Ningfan only moved 2 steps forward. However, he was still unscathed under the bell chime. Your 7th Grandpa doesn't believe that I can't force you to retreat even once today. Dong. Ningfan still continued to advance without retreating. 7th Grandpa is going to take out his peerless ultimate skill. Dong. Gradually, not only did Ningfan not retreat, but he also got used to the suppression of the Buddha light. The number of steps he took to advance also began to increase. What a sin! What a sin! With 7th Grandpa's merciful heart, I originally didn't plan to use this move, but you forced me to do so. Dong It could not stop Ningfan from advancing. The bell chimes continued to ring. The tree spirit named Wuxia sadly realized that his bell chimes could not stop Ningfan from advancing at all. 7th Grandpa was letting you use the previous 12 chimes. However, I'm not going to let you use the 13th chime. The previous 13 chimes were actually just a test. The 14th chime is the true essence of 7th Grandpa's abilities. Don't force me. When the 15th chime rings, 7th Grandpa is really going to use his true strength. 16th, 17th, 18th. Damn it! My devil-subduing bell is already strong enough to force a 3rd Tribulation Immortal King to retreat. Why can't I force this ancient devil brat to retreat? What is this brat's background? Seeing that he still could not force Ningfan to retreat, the tree spirit Wuxia finally could not bear it anymore. He cursed and violated the precept of being angry. The bell chimes reverberated across the entire wooden island. All the disciples of the island were alarmed. They walked out of their monasteries and rushed to the first forbidden area to witness the grand scene of Ningfan breaking through the 100 steps of the bell. Ningfan's speed of advancing was not fast. Every time he advanced, he would trigger the bell chimes that were powerful enough to force a 3rd Tribulation Immortal King to retreat. However, he did not take even half a step back. Such a scene made everyone on the island have a new understanding of Ningfan's strength. This Rain Lord is really powerful. He's just a 1st Tribulation Immortal Venerable, but he can resist the bell chimes that are powerful enough to force a 3rd Tribulation Immortal King to retreat. What kind of ability is that golden light? It's not simple. It's definitely not simple. Could it be that this Rain Lord actually has the strength comparable to an Immortal King? 7th Martial Uncle has already used all his strength, but he still could not stop the Rain Lord from advancing. The Rain Immortal Monarch really lives up to his name. Amidst the praises, Ningfan finally walked to the shade of the ancient pine tree and sat down cross-legged. He realized that the Buddha light and the bell chimes were not completely without benefits. The Buddha light and the Buddha talisman seemed to contain an extremely profound great Tao of wood. Every time the bell chimes rang, even though they were blocked by the God-vanquishing shield, they could still slightly refine the ancient devil bloodline in his body. His ancient devil cultivation base had skyrocketed in the ancient wild region. Because it had become a little superficial, it was now continuously refined and solidified under the bell chimes. In this way, not only did he not blame Wuxia for using the bell chimes to scare him, but he should also thank Wuxia for taking the trouble to trigger the bell chimes to help him refine his ancient devil cultivation base. In this way, he could save at least 1,000 years of bitter cultivation. You arrogant ancient devil brat! How dare you try to comprehend the Tao under my tree? You want to comprehend the Tao in peace, but I won't let you. Seeing Ningfan casually sitting under the tree to comprehend the Tao, Wuxia was so angry that smoke came out from his nostrils. The bell that was supposed to ring one after another was now like a series of cannons, ringing one after another, becoming more and more concentrated. Wuxia did not believe that Ningfan would still be able to sit down and comprehend the Tao peacefully under the ringing of his bell. Within 100 steps of the ancient pine tree, the bell chimes kept reverberating. Not to mention comprehending the Tao here, it was extremely difficult to even stay within 100 steps of the tree without doing anything. Monk Songhua and Old Wu had already been forced to 100 steps away by the violent bell chimes. They could not step into the forbidden area within 100 steps of the ancient pine tree at all. Even if they were 100 steps away from the ancient pine tree, Many low-grade disciples could not bear the impact of the bell chimes and retreated to a distance of 200 steps away. Ning Fan was the only one left within 100 steps of the ancient pine tree. He just sat there quietly, ignoring the bell chimes and the Buddha light that filled the sky as if they were nothing, and focused on doing his own thing. More and more sweat appeared on Muqi's face. It was not easy for him to release the Buddha light and ring the bell. However, it did not affect Ning Fan at all. The truth was right in front of him. Although he was unwilling to admit it, he had no choice but to admit that he could not do anything to Ning Fan, who was an ancient devil. "I'm convinced. Little devil brat, I'm convinced by you. Tell me, what do I have to do for you to stay 100 steps away from me? It wasn't easy for me to attain my Buddhist cultivation base in my life. Now, I'm at the critical point of my cultivation. I must not be disturbed by an ancient devil. As long as you're willing to stay 100 steps away from me, I'll give you a gift. What do you think?" Muqi's tone was already bordering on begging. It sounded pitiful. It turned out that this was the main reason why he was so eager to chase Ning Fan away. Ning Fan's eyes flickered and he said with a smile, "Oh, what gift? Take it." Wuxia was rather straightforward. He opened his mouth and spat out a ball of green light which fell into Ning Fan's palm. "This is..." Ning Fan's eyes immediately turned solemn. The Tao of wood contained in this green light ball was extremely pure. In terms of purity alone, it was almost comparable to the heavenly grade fierce elemental crystal, which was the highest grade among the fierce elemental crystals. This was a good material for cultivating the yin and yang Tao of wood. However, there was one thing that made Ning Fan a little disappointed. The amount of Tao of wood in this ball of light was too little. If this is all, it would not be of much use. "Is this all you have?" Ning Fan smiled innocently and said to Wuxia. Even though the result of Wuxia using the sound of the bell to suppress him was good, and it helped him to refine his ancient devil cultivation base, his motive was more or less not good. Ning Fan had always been a person who would not suffer losses. Since this tree spirit dared to suppress him with the sound of the bell, it had to pay a price. If he does not make a huge profit from it, he would not be considered as the disciple of the old devil and the successor of the Black Devil sect. "This is the only thing I have. It's really the only thing I have. All right, ancient devil brat. Now that you've taken the item, aren't you going to leave?" Wuxia said with a guilty conscience. "If this is all I have, I won't leave." As he was speaking, Ning Fan flipped his hand and kept the green light ball. Then, he continued to endure the Buddha light and the sound of the bell, while closing his eyes to comprehend the Tao of wood in this place. What kind of experience did he have? From Wuqia's expression, he could tell that Wuxia definitely had a lot of this item. If he could take some of them away, it would certainly be greatly beneficial to his cultivation of the yin and yang Tao of wood. "Oh my, you're indeed an ancient devil. You're actually so greedy. You want more true essence of the builder wood? All right, as you wish. Seventh Grandpa wants to see if you have the ability to take these away." Wuxia laughed because of Ning Fan's greed. He opened his mouth and spat out tens of green light balls. Once those light balls soared into the sky, they immediately shone brightly, turning the entire sky green. Above the blue sky, there was an incomparably huge Buddhist talisman that was being drawn out one stroke after another. Surging pressure descended from the sky. The expressions of all the cultivators, including Zen Master Songhua and Old Wu Ba, changed. They found it difficult to endure that level of pressure. This time, the Buddha talisman was extremely clear, so clear that everyone could see the process of the Buddha talisman being drawn. In any case, Zen Master Songhua and the others had seen 7th Shirbua release a complete Buddhist talisman. They were only shocked for a moment, but 8th Brother Wu was deeply moved. In ancient times, there were Buddhist cultivators who went against the ancient devil Tao and cultivated the ancient Buddhist Tao. The ancient fiends cultivated demonic talismans, while the ancient Buddhas cultivated Buddhist talismans. The more runes there were, the stronger the talisman would be. More than 100 runes are considered ancestral talismans. The Buddha talisman of this tree spirit seems to belong to the Wood Buddha lineage. Moreover, it actually has 72 runes. Even though it hasn't reached the ancestral level, it's already rare in this world. Besides, if I'm not mistaken, All of those green light balls are the diluted true essence of the builder wood. This attack of the tree spirit actually used the power of the true essence of the builder wood. This pressure is almost close to the attack of an immortal king at the peak of the third tribulation. Master, oh master, can you withstand this attack? Old Wu Ba began to worry about Ning Fan's safety. How could he not be worried? His life soul was in Ning Fan's hands. If anything happens to Ning Fan, it would be hard to guarantee that his life soul would not be damaged. Ancient devil brat, if you can withstand the echo of the bell this time, why can't I give you the true essence of the builder wood? Unfortunately, you won't be able to withstand it. This time, I'm really going to use my full strength. I won't lie. Dong. Dong. This time, the bell rang 3 times at the same time. The sound of the bell was like raging waves. Each wave was louder than the previous one. Within 100 steps, the space within the range of the bell shook and cracks spread out. The 12 immortal venerables who were hibernating underground also drilled out of the ground and fled 100 steps away. Their faces were filled with fear. Ning Fan, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, was shaken by the sound of the bell. The golden light on the surface of his body actually showed signs of dissipating. Seeing this, Mu Qi's confidence was greatly boosted. He firmly believed that this attack would certainly drive this despicable ancient devil brat out of the forbidden area. The smile on his face was getting more and more smug. Chapter 969. Unfortunately, Mu Qi was destined to be disappointed. Just as the golden light on the surface of Ning Fan's body showed signs of dissipating, a stronger golden light was emitted from his body, easily defending against the 3 overlapping chimes of the bell. It was like a big tree that was not afraid of being shaken by the wind, or a mountain that was not afraid of being blown by the wind. Mu Qi's expression changed after his attack failed. He hurriedly kept the green light balls in the sky, as if he was afraid that Ning Fan would snatch them away. Deep down, he was complaining incessantly. He had even used his strongest attack, but he could not do anything to Ning Fan. What should he do? Is this all the true essence of the builder wood in the tree spirit's hands? Seeing Mu Qi hurriedly keep all the true essence of the builder wood, Ning Fan felt that it was a pity. Mu Qi kept the true essence of the builder wood really fast. He did not even have the time to snatch it away, and it was already taken back. Forget it. This is Taoist Musong's territory after all. This tree spirit is Musong's senior brother in name. It's not good to force this tree spirit too much. Ning Fan shook his head slightly and no longer paid attention to Mu Qi. Compared to the true essence of the builder wood in Mu Qi's hands, Ning Fan was more willing to comprehend the Tao law of wood in this place. He was like an old monk in meditation, completely ignoring the ringing of the bell in his ears. Even though the ringing of the bell was as loud as thunder, he felt that his ears were getting quieter and quieter. He gradually could not hear Mu Qi's noise anymore. The ringing of the bell in the sky also gradually calmed down. The entire world was peaceful. No sound could enter his ears. This was the second realm of the celestial being realm. He had already become one with heaven and earth. If he wants to enter a meditative state, no one could disturb his mind, unless someone attacked him forcefully and dragged him out of this meditative state. Unfortunately, the God exterminating shield would not allow others to attack its master. This Rain Lord can actually enter a meditative state under 7th Uncle's true essence attack, and the 3 overlapping bell ringing. As far as I know, although eldest senior brother Tsongdi, who has the cultivation base of 8th tribulation, could easily block the bell ringing, he couldn't enter such a meditative state when the bell is ringing chaotically. Master once said that those who can achieve the state of all sounds are silent here, but the ringing of the bell remains under the devil-subduing bell, is a peerless genius who has the qualifications to aspire to the immortal emperor realm. However, why do I feel that the Rain Lord's meditative state is even more profound than that? It can't be wrong. Looking at the Rain Sovereign's closed eyes and silent expression, I'm afraid that not even the sound of the bell can be heard. Could this be the most profound state of the Buddhist sect, the tranquility of the 6 senses? The 5 skandhas are empty, and the 6 roots are pure. These are the legendary Buddhist realms. I never imagined that we would have the fortune to witness it with our own eyes today. All the disciples of the Wood Island stared at Ning Fan attentively as he entered into a meditative state. They wanted to see through his profound state of meditation and comprehend the miraculous method to purify the six senses. Unfortunately, they did not know that Ning Fan was not a Buddhist cultivator. How could he learn the six senses of tranquility? This was not the six senses of tranquility, but the even rarer six senses of tranquility, the second stage of the celestial being realm. In the entire world, the number of people who could enter this realm could be counted on one hand. That green ball of light is called the true essence of the builderwood. This true essence is indeed not bad. However, compared to this true essence, I value the Buddha talisman more. Even though Ning Fan did not open his eyes, the scene of Mu Qi drawing the 72 Buddha talismans kept replaying in his mind. Mu Qi was an ancient Buddhist cultivator. He had written all the Tao law of wood that he had comprehended into the 72 Buddha talismans. The Buddha talisman and the Devil talisman seem to be extremely similar. I have the Mo Luo ancestral talisman with me, but I have never drawn any Tao law on it. Ning Fan suddenly had an epiphany. Could he be like Mu Qi and draw the Tao law on his own ancestral talisman? Is this the method that ancient devil cultivators used to comprehend the Tao law and divine abilities? Speaking of which, how many strokes does my Mo Luo ancestral talisman have? I don't seem to have noticed this before. Ning Fan, who was in a meditative state, suddenly raised his right index finger and drew a line in the air in front of him. He had never comprehended his own ancestral talisman so seriously before. This was the first time he had the urge to study it in detail. His previous path of cultivation was really too rushed. He had been rushing all the way. Because of that, he had missed out on many necessary steps and comprehensions. 1 stroke, 2 strokes, 3 strokes, 7 strokes. The Mo Luo ancestral talisman contained 4 patterns: Giant Devil, 6 wings, Mist Horn and Ghost Eye. The first pattern of the ancestral talisman was a giant devil. Unfortunately, Ning Fan had only drawn the 7th stroke. Before he could draw the outline of the giant devil, he felt that there was an unimaginable barrier between him and the ancestral talisman, making it difficult for him to draw the 8th stroke. Eventually, he forced himself to draw the 8th stroke. As a result, the devil talisman that had drawn the 8th stroke cracked into countless pieces of light with a cracking sound and dissipated. He actually could not draw his own devil talisman. This is Rain Lord drawing his own ancient devil talisman? I wonder how many strokes are there in his ancient devil talisman. Rain Lord's 8th stroke seems to be difficult to draw. Legend has it that after ancient devil cultivators attain the heavenly devil realm, they must condense their devil talisman. Otherwise, there will be a barrier between them and the talisman that can't be torn apart. Could it be that Rain Lord hasn't experienced this step before? Otherwise, this devil talisman shouldn't be so difficult to draw. Among the disciples of the Wooden Island, there were many old monsters with rich experience. Their understanding of the ancient devil Tao was actually much deeper than the cultivators in the outside world. Therefore, even though they saw Ning Fan's failure in drawing the devil talisman, none of them dared to underestimate him because of it. Instead, they saw through the reason behind it. Mu Qi, on the other hand, was different. When he saw Ning Fan's failure in drawing the devil talisman, he immediately burst into laughter without caring about his image and ridiculed Ning Fan wantonly. The frustration he felt from not being able to shake Ning Fan with the sound of his bell instantly lessened a lot. This little ancient devil brat actually can't even draw his own devil talisman? This is just too embarrassing for the ancient devils, isn't it? Haha. I'm dying of laughter. Even though this young man hasn't finished drawing the devil talisman, I can see some clues from the few strokes that he has left. It seems to be the outline of the totem of a giant devil. Judging from the direction of the strokes, this young man's devil talisman is either the devil talisman of the giant armor clan with 22 strokes, or the devil talisman of the gray body clan with 24 strokes. It might also be the devil talisman of a small clan that has less than 20 strokes. In any case, it won't be any profound devil talisman. Mu Qi could not stop laughing. Most of the devil talismans that the giant devil clan drew were low-grade devil talismans. Compared to the wooden Buddha talisman that he drew with 72 strokes, They were not on the same level at all. Just as his voice fell, he saw Ning Fan raise his hand again, as if he wanted to try drawing the devil talisman again. 7 strokes. This is my current limit for drawing the devil talisman. However, it doesn't mean that I can't break this limit. After advancing to the heavenly devil realm, my devil talisman seems to have changed. The reason why I can't draw it seems to be because of this. Unfortunately, I have been busy increasing my cultivation base, and neglected to pay attention to the ancient devil talisman in my body. Since I've discovered this flaw today, I have to draw this devil talisman again no matter what. 1 stroke, 2 strokes, 3 strokes, 8 strokes. This time, Ning Fan still failed on the 8th stroke. However, compared to the first time he drew the devil talisman, the feeling of being separated from him was much better. Oh my, this young man failed again. It seems like he won't be able to draw the 8th stroke no matter what. It's no wonder. The process of condensing the devil talisman is the same as condensing the Buddhist talisman. It requires a lot of time. In the past, I spent a total of 300 years to condense the Buddhist talisman. This young man wants to draw the devil talisman again in a day and night. It's no different from daydreaming. Before Wuxia could finish his words, Ning Fan had already raised his hand to draw the devil talisman for the 3rd time. Wuxia firmly believed that Ning Fan would still fail on the 8th stroke this time. However, something unexpected happened. For the 3rd time, Ning Fan drew 11 strokes before he failed. Compared to the previous 8 strokes, he had actually improved tremendously. This young man can actually grasp the trick of condensing the devil talisman in just a few breaths' time. Wuxia was quite surprised. Among the disciples of the Wooden Island, many of them also exclaimed in surprise. The time needed to condense the devil talisman and Buddhist talisman completely depended on the cultivator's comprehension ability. For example, some Buddhist cultivators could instantly comprehend the same Buddhist principle under the Bodhi tree, while some would need to spend their entire lives to gradually comprehend it. Wuxia had spent 300 years to condense the Buddhist talisman, but Ning Fan was able to comprehend it in just a few breaths' time. This could only mean one thing. Ning Fan's comprehension ability far surpassed Wuxia's. 11 strokes are still not enough. This Mo Luo ancestral talisman is an ancestral talisman. It has more than 100 strokes. 11 strokes is not even enough to complete the first form of the Mo Luo 4 symbols, the giant devil image. The experience of rampaging through the endless sea of the rain world in the past replayed in Ning Fan's mind. He seemed to have recalled the scenes when he cultivated the devil path when he was young. He seemed to have recalled the bloody battles that took place in his life. The more his memories surged, the thinner the barrier between him and the devil talisman became. Is it because I have to inscribe my comprehension of the devil path in my entire life into the talisman? Ning Fan recalled the snow of the giant devil clan in the endless sea. He recalled a little snowman named Feng Shuiyan and many other things. When he recalled the past, what he thought was not the hardships of the path of devil cultivation, but the faint warmth he felt. A smile appeared on the corner of his lips. As soon as he smiled, the devil intent of his devil talisman immediately changed a little. Previously, the devil intent of the devil talisman was somewhat similar to that of Great Emperor Mo Luo. Now, however, it was gradually getting closer to Ning Fan's Tao and intent. For the 4th time, he raised his right hand and drew a total of 14 strokes before the devil talisman dissipated. For the 5th time, he drew 17 strokes. For the 6th time, he drew 22 strokes. For the 7th time, he drew 29 strokes. A slightly complete image of a giant devil appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The appearance of this giant devil was already different from the appearance of the 4 symbols of Mo Luo in the past. It still gave off a feeling of overwhelming devil chi. However, if one takes a closer look, they would notice that there was actually a warm smile on the giant devil's face. That kind of smile would never appear on Great Emperor Mo Luo's face. Only Ning Fan could have such a bright and relaxed smile. It's not the devil talisman of the giant armor clan, nor the devil talisman of the gray body clan. This young man's devil talisman is a little unfamiliar. I have already searched through junior brother Musong's library. Other than the devil talismans of the 9 great devil ancestors, I know almost all the devil talismans of the devil race in the ancient devil abyss. However, this young man's devil talisman is not one of the types that I know. Could it be that this is some kind of devil talisman that I have missed? However, this devil talisman only has 29 strokes after all. It can barely be considered as a mid-grade devil talisman. It can't be considered as a high-grade devil talisman. Compared to my Buddha talisman, it's not just a little bit inferior. Wuxia's face was filled with pride. He had 72 strokes of Buddha talisman. Of course, he had the right to be arrogant. Then Ningfan raised his palm for the 8th, 9th and 10th time. Each time, he would increase the complexity of the devil talisman on the basis of the giant devil diagram, causing Wuxia's eyes to become more and more solemn. 34 strokes. No. It's 35 strokes. This young man is actually adding the totem of devil wings to the devil talisman. 42 strokes. The only devil talismans that have totems of giant devil and devil wings at the same time are the 36 drawing devil talismans of the Dark Walker clan, and the 38 drawing devil talismans of the Space Treading clan. Obviously, this devil talisman is not one of the two. 46 strokes. The number of strokes can actually be increased. Ningfan knew nothing about what was happening in the outside world. He did not know that his actions of drawing the devil talismans were constantly breaking Wuxia's understanding. At this moment he only wanted to do one thing, and that was to focus on drawing the totem of the Six-Winged clan. He recalled the scene when he fought against Prince Lan Ling for the devil statue slate in the Six-Winged clan. At that time he was really weak. He actually regarded Prince Lan Ling, who had yet to attain the Void Fragmentation realm, as his greatest enemy. He recalled the devil concubine he received in the Six-Winged clan. If I'm not mistaken, her name was Fen Qi. The number of strokes of the devil talisman that Ningfan drew kept increasing. On the 16th time he drew the devil talisman, he actually managed to draw a total of 62 strokes, completely drawing the totem of the Six-Winged clan. 62 strokes. This young man's devil talisman is not much weaker than my Buddha talisman. If it wasn't because I had other fortuitous encounters, I would only be able to draw around 60 strokes of the Buddha talisman. Wuxia's expression was as gloomy as still water. He no longer dared to underestimate Ningfan's devil talisman. It was impossible for a devil talisman with 62 strokes to be unknown in the cultivation world. Why had he never heard of Ningfan's devil talisman before? At first, he thought that 62 strokes was the limit of Ningfan's devil talisman. However, he did not expect that Ningfan would actually raise his hand for the 17th time and continue to draw the totem of the mist horn on the foundation of the Six-Winged clan. Recalling the past, he remembered that he had also received a devil concubine in the Mist Horn clan. Her name was Suyen. That place also had his memories. The memories melted between his fingers, and he continued to draw on the devil talisman. Gradually, he began to draw an intricate and complicated pair of horns on the giant devil in the diagram. When the totem of the mist horn was completely drawn, the number of strokes on the devil talisman had increased to an astonishing 99 strokes. It's actually a devil talisman with 99 strokes. Currently, in the ancient devil's abyss, only the 9 great devil ancestors have more than 100 strokes on the devil talisman. This young man's devil talisman can definitely be ranked first after the 9 ancestors. Wuxia could no longer remain calm. Compared to the devil talisman that Ningfan had drawn with 99 strokes, his Buddha talisman was basically trash. I didn't expect that I would be able to witness the scene of this young man reforming his devil talisman. Moreover, it's a profound devil talisman that was drawn with 99 strokes. This can also serve as a proof for me to cultivate the ancient Tao of Buddha. Does this count as me receiving the favor of the little ancient devil brat? In this way, doesn't it mean that I owe this little ancient devil brat karma for no reason? Wuxia secretly calculated in his mind. He did not know if the bit of true essence of building wood that he had given to Ningfan would be able to clear this karma. There's still the ghost eye totem that I have yet to draw. Ningfan ended his recollection and drew the third devil eye on the glabella of the giant devil totem. 109 strokes, 117 strokes, 129 strokes, 141 strokes. When Ningfan retracted his finger, The devil talisman finally gathered the 4 symbols of Devil Luo, and the number of strokes had reached a terrifying 152 strokes. He slowly opened his eyes and stared at the devil talisman in front of him with a gentle gaze. No one knew that he was not looking at the devil talisman, but his past when he cultivated the ancient devil bloodline. It was just like how his younger self was looking at his younger self. The entire place fell into dead silence. Mu Qi had already stopped ringing the bell and releasing his Buddha light for a long time. However, he still disturbed Ning Fan's comprehension. Before this, no one would have expected that Ning Fan's devil talisman could reach a terrifying number of 152 strokes. Such a number of strokes could only be achieved by an ancestral-grade devil talisman. Needless to say, Ning Fan's devil talisman was definitely an ancestral-grade devil talisman. In the illusory world, other than the great ancient devils who disappeared together with the Devil Conferral Summit, only the 9 great devil ancestors who were suppressed in the illusory world possessed ancestral-grade devil talismans. Was Ning Fan's ancestral talisman the ancestral talisman of the 9 great devil ancestors, or the great devil ancestral talisman on the Devil Conferral Summit? Or perhaps, it was an ancestral talisman that came from the outer world immortal region? This is going to be troublesome. This karma is a little too big. Mu Song doesn't have an ancient Buddha among his disciples. Thus, he can't comprehend anything from it. Thus, he doesn't owe this young man any karma. However, I am different. My cultivation base has been stuck at the second tribulation immortal venerable realm for 9 million years. After witnessing the scene of this young man condensing his talisman, my bottleneck actually loosened a little. If I break through, I will become an immortal king. This is the karma that helped me break through to the immortal king realm. How can I return it? Mu Qi's mind raced and he remembered that Ning Fan was very interested in his true essence of building wood. In the past, after Mu Song planted the 7 pine trees and opened their spirits, he divided the last drop of true essence of building wood into 3 portions and gave it to Mu Qi to comprehend. As the tree spirit of the 7th pine tree, Mu Qi had the right to control the true essence of building wood. He had already comprehended what he needed to comprehend from it. These true essence of building wood were no longer of much use to him. Thus, it was not a bad idea to give it to Ning Fan. Little ancient devil. Oh no. It's little friend ancient devil. Little friend ancient devil, since you want my true essence of building wood, I will give it all to you. Mu Qi hated ancient devils the most in his life. However, at this moment, he forced himself to squeeze out a smile and faced Ning Fan. Unfortunately, even though Ning Fan had opened his eyes, there was only the devil talisman in his eyes. He was still immersed in his own comprehension, and could not hear Mu Qi's words at all. He completely ignored him. His comprehension was not over yet. Condensing the devil talisman was just to do something that he did not have time to do after he broke through to the heavenly devil realm. He still had other things to do, which was to continue drawing the Tao of wood that he had comprehended into the devil talisman. This was much more difficult than condensing the devil talisman. However, if he succeeds, he could continue to increase the number of strokes of the devil talisman and increase its power. What is wood? In the eyes of 1,000 people, there are 1,000 types of Tao of wood. This tree spirit, Mu Qi's original form, is a pine tree. Therefore, the Tao of wood that he comprehended is also based on the pine tree. His Buddha talisman has 72 strokes. The Buddha talisman that he drew is a vigorous ancient pine tree. The reason why Mu Qi drew the pine tree as a talisman is because the pine tree has the meaning of repelling people from 1,000 miles away. The pine leaves are like needles that cause pain when touched. That thorn is a kind of unreasonable overbearingness. Because of this kind of overbearingness, this Mu Qi chased me away when he saw that I am an ancient devil. His attitude is terrible. The pine needles that Mu Qi saw are repelling people from 1,000 miles away. The pine needles that I saw, on the other hand, are unyielding and have the courage to pierce through everything. They have the courage to stand upright and pierce through the sky without fear. They have the courage to stand alone in the cold and pierce through the wind and snow without any intention of yielding. That thorn will not hurt people, but it is a kind of warning. Those who offend me will be killed no matter how far away they are. Those who bully me will pay the price even if they have to perish together with me. This pine tree might not necessarily not have its own stubbornness. At this moment, Ning Fan was clearly comprehending the pine tree. However, what his mind was recalling was the unyielding past that he had experienced along the way. As soon as he stepped onto the path of cultivation, he dared to go against Moksha Sovereign. When he was still in the butterfly body, he dared to destroy the eye of the palm of love. It was not that he could not tolerate it, but he could not compromise. There were too many things in this world that he could not take even half a step back. When I raise my hand towards the heavens, I don't necessarily need to pluck the stars. I just need a stance that will never yield. From this point of view, I am indeed only fit to cultivate the devil path but not the Buddha path. The Buddha path emphasizes on being submissive, but the devil path is not willing to suffer any losses. The Buddha path emphasizes on the emptiness of the 5 skandhas. They must abandon all external things and distracting thoughts. However, I insist on holding on to all my perseverance. The Buddha path emphasizes on doing good deeds and accumulating virtue. However, I am like a devil lord who slaughters in all directions. My ferocious name has spread far and wide. There are only a few people in the world who respect me, but a lot of people are afraid of me. However, what I seek is never the respect of the world. The pine tree that Wuxia drew has a total of 72 strokes. Among them, 64 strokes are the foundation. Only the last 6 strokes contain the power of the Tao of wood. The last 6 strokes kept replaying in Ning Fan's mind. These 6 strokes contained Wuxia's comprehension of the Tao of wood that he had accumulated for tens of millions of years. It also contained his comprehension of the Buddha path that he had accumulated throughout his entire life. I can absorb the comprehension of the Tao of wood in these 6 strokes and fuse it into my devil talisman. However, I want to go against the comprehension of the Buddha path within them. I am an ancient devil and not an ancient Buddha. The Buddha cultivates against the ancient devil, while the devil is born against the Tao of the ancient Buddha. For these 6 strokes, I want to take their Tao from the right side and their meaning from the opposite side. Ning Fan raised his hand and drew the 153rd stroke after the devil Luo 4 symbols. If one's cultivation base was not high enough, they would not be able to see the profoundness of this stroke at all. At this place, only Songhua, Songshi, Old Wu and Wuxia could see the profoundness of this stroke. Wuxia, in particular, nearly widened his eyes. With just a single glance, Wuxia recognized that Ning Fan's stroke was obviously comprehended from the 72 Buddha talismans that he drew. Not only that, this stroke had completely gone against the Buddha intent of Wuxia's Buddha talisman. Instead, it had incorporated Ning Fan's own devil sense. He was creating his own devil talisman. Ning Fan was actually creating his own devil talisman on the basis of the ancestral grade devil talisman. As soon as the stroke fell, all the Tao of wood on the entire wooden island were activated by Ning Fan's devil talisman. This devil talisman vaguely contained the power of the Tao of wood. This stroke was the opposite of the Tao of ancient devil and ancient Buddha. After this stroke, Ning Fan's devil talisman underwent a qualitative change. It was no longer accurate to say that it was the Mo Luo ancestral talisman, because the Mo Luo ancestral talisman did not incorporate the Tao of wood into it. This was a devil talisman that was different from the Mo Luo ancestral talisman. As soon as this talisman appeared, Ning Fan's ancient devil bloodline was truly severed from the Mo Luo ancestral talisman. Only ancient devils with ancestral bloodline can create their own devil talismans. If the grade of their bloodline isn't high enough, or they don't have the identity of an ancient devil, they won't be qualified to create their own devil talisman or bloodline. There is only one explanation for this little ancient devil brat being able to create his own devil talisman. He is not only an ancient devil, but also an ancient devil who has cultivated his ancestral bloodline. I didn't expect that there would actually be an ancient devil or devil ancestor in this Dharma-ending era. Even though the Tao of Buddha and devil Tao were different, they had some similarities. To Wuxia, being able to witness an ancient devil or devil ancestor creating his own devil talisman was definitely a great gain. The karma that he owed Ning Fan was really getting bigger and bigger. What he hated the most in his life were ancient devils. Unfortunately, he owed Ning Fan such a huge amount of karma this time. Under Wuxia's complicated gaze, Ning Fan added the second, third and fourth strokes to the devil talisman. Ning Fan used a full 2 hours to complete the 5th stroke. As for the 6th stroke, Ning Fan used 4 hours to complete it. At this point, the number of strokes of Ning Fan's ancestral talisman had officially increased to 158 strokes. On the left side of the 4 aspects giant devil, a towering ancient pine tree appeared. Even though the number of strokes of the devil talisman had only increased by 6 strokes, its grade was already much higher than the original devil talisman. Moreover, he could even use the power of the Tao of Wood with the help of the devil talisman. Little ancient devil brat, I'm convinced. I'm really convinced. You've shown me such a good show. I'll give you all the true essence of the builder wood that I have. In this way, I won't owe you any karma anymore. By the way, I'll give you another piece of advice. I only have 6 strokes of the Tao of Wood. The Tao of my 6 elder brothers is much more profound than mine. If you go to other forbidden areas, just tell them that you want to see their Buddha talismans, and use them to comprehend your own ancestral talisman. I believe they will be very willing to show their Buddha talismans to you. They have also been stuck at the bottleneck for many years. They won't miss this opportunity. Wuxia let out a sigh. He opened his mouth and spat out tins of green light balls to Ning Fan. His malicious intent had triggered Ning Fan's enlightenment and allowed him to create his own devil talisman. That malicious intent could not repay the karma that Ning Fan had given him. If he wanted to end the karma, he could only repay Ning Fan with the true essence of the builder wood. After all, he had obtained quite a lot of benefits from Ning Fan. The bottleneck of the immortal king realm that he had been stuck at for 9 million years had loosened because of Ning Fan. It was a great favor. It was only right for him to pay some price for it. You're giving all of them to me? Ning Fan was slightly stunned. He did not go and seize the true essence of the builder wood, but the true essence of the builder wood came to him on its own. How could there be such a good thing? After thinking for a while, Ning Fan figured out the reason behind it. It turned out that this Wuxia had gained enlightenment because of his act of creating the devil talisman. Thus, he wanted to repay the karma that he owed him. What Buddhist cultivators pursued in their entire lives was the perfection of karma. If you sow good karma, you will obtain a good kingdom. If you owe others karma, you will surely repay them. With that thought, he seemed to be in the right when he accepted the true essence of the builder wood. What Ning Fan was more concerned about was Wuxia's advice. Does Wuxia's 6 elder brothers have an even more profound Tao of Wood? I wonder if these insights will allow me to draw a few more devil talismans. Chapter 970. Wood Island had 7 forbidden grounds. Wuxia's real body was the 7th pine. Inside the 7th pine, there were tens of millions of years of Wuxia's comprehension of wood. Those comprehensions were fused into the 72 Buddhist talismans. The last 6 strokes were the essence of the talismans. Ning Fan comprehended them and integrated them into his own devil talisman. Thus, there was no reason for Ning Fan to continue staying in the 7th pine. After giving his advice, Wuxia returned to the tree. Ning Fan kept the essence of the builder wood and left the 7th pine with the others. They walked all the way to the 6th pine. The 6th pine was also a purple-skinned ancient pine. The aura it exuded was much heavier than the 7th pine. Within 100 steps, the air seemed to be frozen. There was no sound of wind. It was terrifyingly quiet. That kind of silence was the silence of not saying a word for 10 years. It was the silence of the Tao that if I don't speak, the world will be silent. Ning Fan stared at the 6th pine tree and fell into deep thought. The group of disciples of the wooden island walked to 100 steps away from the 6th pine tree and bowed to him. Zen Master Songwu even lowered his voice and did not dare to speak loudly. He reported to the 6th pine tree that Ning Fan was going to come here to gain enlightenment. He also told the 6th pine spirit about Ning Fan's creation of the ancestral talisman in the 7th pine. After a long time, a human face finally emerged on the 6th pine. It was the spirit of the 6th pine, Mulu. Mulu didn't say a word, but his eyes were fixed on Ning Fan. He was a little moved and attentive. Then he opened his mouth and spat out dozens of green light balls in front of Ning Fan. It's the essence of the builder wood again. Wu Laoba's eyes were burning. But he did not understand why this silent tree spirit gave his master so much essence of the builder wood as soon as they met. If it was a meeting gift, it was too generous. Song Country Zen master saw Ning Fan's puzzled face and explained, "Sixth martial uncle didn't speak. He wanted to be like seventh martial uncle, and watch the scene of fellow Taoist creating your own devil talisman. He wanted to gain enlightenment from it and break through the bottleneck. This essence of the builder wood is the reward for sixth martial uncle. He won't let fellow Taoists work for nothing." "I see." Ning Fan nodded and kept all the green light balls in front of him. Then he said to Mulu, "Fellow Taoist, please show us your Buddha talismans." This time he did not walk within 100 steps of the sixth pine tree. If he wanted to comprehend the Tao of this pine tree, there was no need to walk under the tree. It was undoubtedly faster to comprehend from the talisman of the tree spirit. Mulu still did not say a word. However, after Ning Fan made his request, he opened his mouth and spat out a ray of green light. The green light soared into the sky and gradually formed a Buddhist talisman with the pattern of an ancient pine tree in midair. Mulu's talismans had a total of 74 strokes. It was much more profound than Muchi's talismans. The strangest thing was that the moment the Buddhist talisman appeared, the entire world became deathly silent. It was as if all sound had disappeared in an instant. The foundation of the Tao of wood that the sixth tree spirit comprehended is also pine. What he comprehended is the silent meaning of pine. Ning Fan clasped his hands behind his back and stood 100 steps away from the sixth pine tree. He slowly closed his eyes. In his mind, every stroke of Mulu's Buddha talisman kept repeating. His heart gradually merged with the Tao sense of the sixth pine tree. The intricate 74 strokes of the Buddha talisman began to become clear and easy to understand at a glance. This Buddha talisman has a total of 74 strokes. Just like Mulu's Buddha talisman, it has 66 strokes as its foundation. As for the strokes that contain the Tao of wood, there are 8 strokes. Ning Fan raised his right index finger. Devil light shone from it, and he drew the pattern of the devil talisman in front of him. The 158 strokes of the ancestral talisman slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Especially the last 6 strokes of the talisman. It gave Wu Laoba, Zen Master Songhua, and the other cultivators an incomparably profound feeling. It was as if the 6 strokes of the talisman contained countless Tao of wood. However, it was too abstruse and obscure. As a result, they wanted to imitate it and trace the Tao path with their own strength. However, they realized that they could not do it at all. Even so, just by looking at these few strokes, everyone more or less had their own comprehension of the Tao of wood. Even though the comprehension was not much, it still made them feel happy. Especially Wu Laoba. He had an almost paranoid obsession with the Tao of wood. Among the thousands of Tao in the world, he did not know why, but he only loved this Tao. How could Wu Laoba not be happy to be able to obtain his own comprehension of the Tao of wood from the scene of Ning Fan comprehending the talisman? He was already resigned to submitting to Ning Fan. At this moment, he felt that it was an incomparably wise decision to become Ning Fan's slave. The peach and plum do not speak, the path below is formed. The pine and cypress do not speak, everlasting green. The saint did not speak for 3 years, the 4 seas were silent. Once he spoke, the world was shocked. This sixth tree spirit seems to be cultivating the silent meditation of Buddhism. This person comprehended the silent meditation from the 10,000 gully pine tree wind. The silence of the pine tree can silence the sound of all things. Therefore, from the moment we met, this person did not speak a word. Within 100 steps of this place, there is not even a trace of wind. In terms of cultivation base, this person is much better than me. He is already at the immortal king realm. However, in my opinion, this person's silence of the pine tree has not yet reached the highest level. Moreover, he seems to have taken the wrong path. If I were to cultivate the silent meditation, it would be divided into 4 realms. The first realm is fear but not speaking, this is not daring. The second realm is pain but not speaking, this is not willing. The third realm is laughter but not speaking, this is not necessary. The last realm is no sorrow nor joy, no heart and no thoughts, wanting to speak but forgetting to speak, this is not holding. This person did not speak but his heart could not calm down. When he saw me, his heart was obviously excited, but he did not dare to speak. He forced himself to remain silent. Even in the silent meditation, it can be considered to be at a disadvantage. This person's Tao has fear. His comprehension of the 8 brush wood has also been imperceptibly stained with a trace of fear. The true silence is not the mouth but the heart. I can take away his comprehension, but this fear is not acceptable. It must be modified before I can integrate it into my devil talisman. The 159th painting, the 160th painting, the 161st painting. Every stroke increased extremely slowly. Time passed little by little, and a day passed by quietly. The number of strokes on Ning Fan's devil talisman had finally increased to 166. He had integrated all of Mu Lu's comprehension for tens of millions of years into the devil talisman. The power of the Tao of wood in the devil talisman had improved a lot. The 8 simple strokes contained unimaginable Tao of wood, causing Wu Laoba and the disciples of the Wood Island to more or less gain some enlightenment. Some were thinking hard, some were frowning, each of them had a different expression. Mu Lu's expression was as if he was suddenly enlightened. It was as if he was suddenly enlightened. So that's why. The reason why he was stuck at the bottleneck and could not continue to improve his cultivation base was because he had taken the wrong path. The 8 strokes that Ning Fan integrated into the devil talisman seemed similar to the 8 strokes in his Buddha talisman, but in fact, they were different. Those 8 strokes not only went against his Buddha intent, but also integrated with his devil intent. More importantly, Ning Fan's devil talisman did not have fear in it. Cultivation was originally something that went against the heavens. Buddhist cultivators could resign themselves to adversity and endure all of the sufferings in the world, but they should not be afraid in their hearts. Wood is not wood, silence is not silence. Closing one's mouth is opening, but speaking is silent. All these years, I have insisted on not saying a word. Little friend, thank you very much. Mu Lu sighed repeatedly. After thanking Ning Fan, he returned to the ancient pine tree. The disciples of the Wood Island were shocked. Their 6th martial uncle, who had not spoken for tens of millions of years, actually spoke today. Let's go to the 5th pine tree and have a look. Ning Fan followed everyone to the forbidden area of the 5th pine tree. The 5th pine tree was filled with extremely strong battle intent. Songhua and the others reported the purpose of their visit to the 5th pine tree. Suddenly, a human face appeared on the 5th pine tree. It was staring at Ning Fan, who was in the crowd. This old man is Mu Wu. What is your name? Mu Wu's voice was very loud. It was as if he was roaring. His voice was like thunder. I am Ning Fan. Even Wu Laoba, Songhua and the others felt pain in their eardrums because of Mu Wu's voice. However, Ning Fan's expression did not change at all. I heard from martial nephew Songhua that my 6th brother and 7th brother have obtained quite a lot of benefits from you. This old man is very interested in the matter of you creating your own ancestral talisman. However, the aura force of my Buddha talisman is very strong. Can you withstand it? Senior, please show me your Buddha talisman. As you wish. Mu Wu suddenly roared. An unimaginably majestic battle intent shook the heavens and the earth, turning the heavens and the earth into a patch of green. Within the green light, there was an ancient pine tree Buddha talisman. Every stroke of the talisman was formed. The number of strokes of the talisman kept increasing. The aura force it produced also became heavier and heavier. When the Buddha talisman reached the 24th stroke, the sense fragmentation realm cultivators on the island could not stand still. When the number of strokes increased to 48, the expressions of Wu Laoba, Songhua and the others also changed. They could not withstand the battle intent of the talisman. When the number of strokes increased to 76, the entire Wood Island was submerged under Mu Wu's crazy battle intent. Even Wu Laoba felt a sense of fear from the bottom of his heart when facing Mu Wu. He was actually afraid in front of Mu Wu even before the battle started. Mu Wu did not even look at the crowd. Unlike the others who were shaken by his aura force, Ning Fan was still standing straight like a pine tree. He was not affected by the battle intent of the heavenly cycle at all. This made Mu Wu look at Ning Fan in a higher light. He raised his head and laughed loudly. This is great. This is great. Even an ordinary third tribulation immortal king would have to be cautious in front of this old man. However, you are not afraid of the suppression of this old man's will. Since that is the case, this old man will not hold back anymore. Let us fight to our heart's content. Muwu was so excited that he actually forgot his original intention. He wanted to show Ning Fan his Buddha talisman so that he could watch the scene of Ning Fan creating his own devil talisman. At this moment, he only wanted to have a hearty battle with Ning Fan. However, after hearing his thunderous roar, that roar suddenly turned into a divine ability. It was as if a substantial green will suddenly press down on Ning Fan's head. It was as if a mountain was collapsing and the sky was collapsing. Its momentum was earth-shattering. So this fifth tree spirit is a battle maniac. Ning Fan was slightly speechless. He came here to comprehend the heavenly cycle. This Muwu actually attacked him directly. Of course, he could see that Muwu's attack was not heavy and he did not have any malicious intent. He was just excited to see a prey and wanted to spar with him. The green will pressed down from the sky, causing the crowd to be unable to breathe. However, Ning Fan was not affected at all. He slowly raised his hand and pressed his 5 fingers. The green will that was descending from the sky was suddenly torn apart by him. Then, it collapsed with a series of cracking sounds. Ning Fan had cultivated the yin-yang battle technique. He was not afraid of a battle of wills. Good boy, you actually tore apart this old man's will suppression. Come, let us fight again. Muwu was very excited. He wanted to fight with Ning Fan again. However, Ning Fan shook his head slightly and did not say anything. Instead, he pointed at Muwu in the air. It was just an ordinary finger. The others could not see the profoundness of that finger at all. However, as soon as that finger landed, Muwu's eager face suddenly turned into astonishment. That finger in the air actually sealed the flow of will in his body effortlessly, causing his originally restless battle intent to immediately calm down as if cold water had been poured over it. I can't break free. I can't break free from this seal. This is actually the suppression of a peak-level expert. This young man actually possesses the Tao Law of peak-level expert. Muwu's expression changed greatly. In the entire Eastern Heaven, there were only 4 peak-level experts who could cultivate to the void-level expert realm. There were not many immortal emperors who could slightly comprehend the Tao Law of peak level. This young man is only an immortal venerable, but he can actually comprehend the usage of the Tao Law of peak level expert, and use the power of the peak-level expert realm to seal the flow of will in his body. When it comes to cultivation, going too far is as bad as falling short. Sir, you are a little too fond of battle. Ning Fan's casual words enlightened Muwu. After a moment of shock, Muwu was at a loss for a moment. Going too far is as bad as falling short. Going too far is as bad as falling short. What he cultivated was originally Song's unyielding will, but it was unknown when it started, but he actually cultivated that unyielding will into a berserk battle intent. Sure enough, this path is still the wrong one. If someone else said that Muwu had taken the wrong path, Muwu would still retort a few words. However, these words came from Ning Fan's mouth. The meaning was different. Since Ning Fan could cultivate the Tao Law of peak-level expert realm, his comprehension of the Tao of will was naturally deeper than Muwu's. His words could not be taken lightly. May I ask, fellow Taoist, if I were to choose again, how should I continue on this path? Muwu changed from his previous battle lust and asked politely. All the disciples of the Wood Island dropped their jaws in shock. This fifth martial uncle was never polite to anyone. Even when facing their master, Taoist Musang, he would always put on an expression of superiority. Who would have thought that fifth martial uncle would also be polite to others? Ning Fan did not answer Muwu's question directly. Instead, he closed his eyes and sketched Muwu's 76 strokes of Buddha talisman in his mind. Among these 76 strokes, only 10 of them contained the comprehension of wood. What Muwu comprehended was the unyielding will of Song. Ning Fan stood there for an entire day without answering Muwu's question. After a day, Ning Fan finally opened his eyes. He raised his hand and drew his devil talisman stroke by stroke. His devil talisman had increased to 166 strokes. After fusing with Muwu's comprehension of wood, he raised his hand and drew the 167th stroke. Then it was the 168th stroke, 169th stroke, 170th stroke. Muwu's comprehension of wood only had 10 strokes. But this time, Ningfan actually increased the comprehension of the Tao law from 10 strokes to 12 strokes based on his comprehension of the Tao law. In the end, his devil sign increased to 178 strokes. The more strokes he had, the more restrained the ancient pine pattern he drew became, and the more silent it became. Do you understand now? Ningfan opened his mouth. He had already answered Muwu's question with his actions. Muwu was in deep thought. He vaguely felt that he had grasped the key point, but he was still a little confused. After a long time, he smiled bitterly and shook his head at Ningfan. Ningfan did not say a word. He walked to an ordinary pine tree at the side, and used his finger like a sword to cut down the pine tree. Then he pointed at the pine tree's growth ring and asked, "Now do you understand?" Looking at the pine tree's growth ring, Muwu felt an explosion in his mind. He suddenly understood the things that he was confused about in the past. Muwu heaved a long sigh and thanked Ningfan sincerely. "Thank you for your guidance, fellow Taoist." The path that Ningfan pointed out to him was to be reserved. The Tao law that Muwu saw was like the marks on the pine tree's bark. The Tao law that Ningfan saw was the growth ring at the heart of the tree. The cultivation of the Tao law should not be exposed. Instead, it should be like the growth ring of the pine tree, hidden deep in one's heart and grow circles by circles from the inside out. Verbal gratitude was not enough to express Muwu's gratitude. Of course, he also gave all the essence of the builder wood to Ningfan. Ningfan kept the essence and bade farewell to Muwu. Then he went to the fourth pine forbidden land with the others. After explaining the purpose of their visit, the fourth pine tree spirit, Wuxia, appeared and displayed his Buddha talisman in front of Ningfan. Wuxia's Buddha talisman was different from the previous 3 tree spirits. It was also the pattern of a pine tree. However, there was an innocent little girl under the pine tree. "My Buddha talisman is not the strongest in the Wood Island, but it is different from the others." Wuxia's eyes were cold and emotionless. As soon as the Buddha talisman appeared, the Tao of wood of the entire Wood Island deviated slightly. Ningfan's expression suddenly became serious. Wuxia's Buddha talisman actually contained a trace of the power of the wood palm position. This old man's understanding of the Tao of wood for thousands of years can be summed up in one sentence. That is, plants are heartless. Chapter 971. Wuxia's Buddha talisman was very strange. In the eyes of old Wu Ba and Zen master Songhua, the talisman was just an ordinary pine tree. They could not see the little girl under the pine tree. Among the crowd, Ningfan was the only one who could see that little girl. "You can see you?" Wuxia's expression was originally very cold and stiff. However, when he noticed Ningfan's solemn gaze when he looked at the talisman, his eyes were filled with surprise. "See you? Are you referring to the little girl in the talisman?" Ningfan nodded. "That's right. For Moons is her nickname. I watched her grow up. At that time, I planted a pine tree clone on a cultivation planet that was millions of galaxies away from the Wood Island. I wanted to use it to comprehend the palm position of wood. I clearly planted my clone in the depths of the mountains, but this little girl was able to sense my existence in the midst of thousands of pine trees." "That's right." Wuxia seemed to have opened his mouth. Under the activation of his ability, the scenes of that year were displayed in Ningfan's mind like images. The first image was the scene where Taoist Musong was imparting the Tao to Wuxia. In the beginning, Wuxia was not called Wuxia but Mui. He was the tree spirit with the highest cultivation base among the 7 pine trees. The sequence of the 7 pine trees was divided according to their cultivation base. As Wuxia's cultivation base was the highest, he was once valued by Taoist Musong. On that day, Taoist Musong ended his 100,000 years of seclusion and walked out. The first thing he did was to erect the second and third stone steels on the wooden island. It turned out that the 2 steels of seclusion were erected at the same time. The second thing he did was to find Wuxia and share what he had comprehended during this seclusion with him. "It has been 12 million years since I closed my eyes and broke through to the second level of the quasi-saint realm. That little fellow Sunluo has also been locked up in the heavenly prison for 11 million years. That little rascal once said that if I can erect all 3 steels and integrate all the Tao I have learned in my life into them, my cultivation base will improve further. Today, I have finally erected the 2nd and 3rd steels, but I realize that I am still far away from the 3rd level of the quasi-saint realm. 3 steels are still not enough. However, I don't know how to erect the 4th steel. De Shixiang, after this closed-door cultivation, I have reached a whole new realm. Closing my eyes is like opening them, and I can see the truth of the illusionary world. As a matter of fact, 12 million years ago, I was already able to catch a glimpse of the truth of this world. However, it was only until now that I managed to do it perfectly. The real illusory world is even more desolate and lonesome than I had imagined. There's a saying in Buddhism that all forms in this world are empty. Now, I finally understand the true meaning of that saying. The art of becoming the ruler is hard to find in this world. Most people only know that becoming a sovereign immortal emperor requires the power of a sovereign Tao fruit. Therefore, there are many old monsters who want to plant a sovereign Tao fruit, but very few of them know that the correct way to become a sovereign immortal emperor is to open his eyes and create his own sovereign void in the real world. However, it's easier said than done to open my eyes and see the real world. Within 4 days, including the 10 great secret clans, there are no more than 20 people who are able to achieve such a feat. In the land of Eastern Heaven, other than the secret clans, there are only 3 sovereign immortal emperors apart from this old man. Among them, Lightning Emperor Tai Su has been dead for many years. Let's not talk about him. As for the remaining 2, one is the current Sha Di of the Slaughter Palace, and the other is Old Man Hutu of the Hutu sect. However, as far as I know, these 2 people did not rely on the art of opening their eyes to become the ruler. The reason why they could become the ruler was because of the power of the sovereign Tao fruit. As a result, they are at a disadvantage. The art of opening one's eyes is a top secret in this world. That disciple of mine, Song Song, has a good aptitude. He has gradually made a name for himself in the Eastern Heaven as the Azure Emperor. However, it's a pity that he does not have enough aptitude to open his eyes. I don't know about this. Xiang Bozi, on the other hand, once had the aptitude to open his eyes. However, for the sake of Sunluo Imp, he gave up his eyes. In the end, he did not have the chance to reach the wonderful state of opening his eyes. His disciple Sunluo has even more aptitude than Old Man Xiang. He once opened his eyes in this old man's golden sky-black map. This child's aptitude is the best that this old man has ever seen in his life. It's a pity that this child lost the chance to become a sovereign because of a woman. He will forever be an immortal king, and is still imprisoned in the heavenly prison of the godly void pavilion. As such, there is no need for him to become a sovereign immortal emperor. What I'm going to say next might be a little unpleasant to hear, but I don't mean any harm. I hope that eldest senior brother will be magnanimous enough to forgive me. With eldest senior brother's aptitude, most likely, you will also not be able to open your eyes. If you want to become a sovereign, I'm afraid you will have to find another way. During my seclusion this time, I comprehended a second type of sovereign technique from the real world. Are you willing to learn it? The normal path to the sovereign realm requires a high level of comprehension. It's too difficult to open your eyes. The sovereign realm Tao fruit is a lower level method. The method that I comprehended this time is of the same grade as the art of opening the eyes, but it's much simpler. I named it the heartless technique. The great Tao is heartless. This heartless technique is not because your heart is not moved. Instead, it's because after you have seen through everything, you will gradually give up. Senior brother, why don't you go to the mortal world to gain experience? If you can thoroughly comprehend the wonderful principle of the word, heartless, and make your heart die, with your unique plant body, you will definitely be able to comprehend it. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. He could actually see the scene where Daoist Mu Song imparted his Tao to Mu Si. It was too difficult to become a true sovereign immortal emperor. By relying on the profoundness of the 27 yin-yang arts of the chaotic loops art, he had found another way to use the power of the sovereign realm. However, he did not cultivate the sovereign realm void. Thus, he could not be considered as a true sovereign realm immortal emperor. From this scene, Ningfan heard for the first time that the correct way to become a sovereign immortal emperor was not to consume the sovereign realm Dao fruit, but to open your eyes. What does that mean? What does it mean to open your eyes? What is the real world after you open your eyes? At this moment, Ningfan only felt enlightened. It was as if this simple scene contained an unimaginable great Tao. However, he could not understand it. There was no time to comprehend more. The second scene appeared in Ningfan's mind again. The location was an old forest deep in the mountains. There were countless ancient pines in the forest. The pine tree clone that Wuxia sent out was just an insignificant one among them. His purpose was to secretly plant a clone in this place and spy on every mortal life on this cultivation planet, to comprehend the meaning of emotionlessness that Mu Song had mentioned originally. He thought that he would have to live alone in the deep mountains for a long time. However, he did not expect that a little girl would easily enter his life and disrupt his journey of comprehending the Tao. It was the second day after Wuxia arrived on this cultivation planet. In a nearby mountain village, a group of adult hunters brought their juniors to hunt in the deep mountains. What kind of cultivation base did Wuxia have? Even a true immortal realm expert might not be able to see through his pine tree clone. The mortal hunters who passed by him in the mountains certainly could not tell that it was a tree with a spirit. Only a little girl who wore a red cotton robe and had braided braids could tell that Wuxia was extraordinary. Grandpa, look. This pine tree is peeking at me. Is it a demon? Why can it see me? It doesn't have eyes. The 7-year-old little 4 months was very curious. Since she was born, she could see things that others couldn't. The people in the village all said that this little girl was abnormal. Therefore, very few people were willing to get close to this abnormal little girl. Shu, my little ancestor, don't ever say such words again. If you offend any immortal, be careful of your life. When the old hunter who was addressed as Grandpa heard Little Four saying such nonsense again, he was so scared that his face turned pale. He hurriedly bowed to Wuxia's pine tree and kept muttering, "Gods and Buddhas bless me, and don't be offended." Then he pulled Little 4 months and fled. The others also bowed to the pine tree and left as if they were fleeing. Their expressions were filled with fear and trepidation. They didn't dare to hunt around Wuxia anymore. It seemed that everyone believed Little 4 months' words and treated Wuxia as a tree demon. They had a taboo. This made Wuxia speechless. His original intention was to comprehend Tao in the deep mountains and forests in a low-key manner. He didn't want to come into contact with anyone. However, he didn't expect to be seen through by a group of mortals on the second day of his arrival on this cultivation planet. Was it because his method of concealing his aura was too clumsy? Or that braided little girl's eyes were too sharp? A mere mortal can actually see things that even true immortals can't. Wuxia sighed with emotion. What made him even more dumbfounded was that on the third day, that braided little girl ran into the deep mountains alone and came to him. Wasn't this 7-year-old mortal child afraid of being eaten by the tigers and wolves in the mountains? That was a little too daring. Oh, so that's how it is. This little girl's neck is hanging a cultivation magic tool that can drive away tigers and wolves. No wonder she dared to enter the mountains alone. The grade of the magic tool wasn't high. It seemed to be something made by a junior at the first or second level of the vein opening realm. Uncle Tree, are you looking at my talisman? Do you want my talisman? Do you think it is very beautiful? Do you want it? But I can't give it to you. Grandpa said that I could see ghosts when I was a child. I spent a whole 2 taels of silver to ask for this talisman from Mao Mountain's Grandpa Daoist. I can't give it to you. Wuxia frowned slightly but didn't answer. This little girl seemed to be very talkative. My name is Siyu. Uncle Tree, what's your name? You don't speak. Is it because you can't say it, or because you don't have a name? I know you are a tree demon and you can certainly speak. You don't answer. Is it because you don't have a name? Do you want me to give you a name? Grandpa praised me for being the best at giving names. Grandma raised 7 pigs, and I gave each of them a name. Do you want to listen? The corner of Wuxia's mouth twitched, but he still didn't answer. This little girl was indeed very talkative. Uncle Tree, you don't like to talk, right? Then just listen, I'll explain it to you. Let's talk about the big yellow dog raised by second brother Lin next door. The little girl talked about the big yellow dog for a quarter of an hour. Let's talk about the big white goose of the village chief. Another quarter of an hour passed. I ate half a pancake in the morning yesterday and half a bread at noon. Another quarter of an hour passed. The day before yesterday. The day before yesterday. Wuxia was, after all, a powerful old monster. Although he was tired of the little girl's long-windedness, he listened from the beginning to the end without interrupting even half a sentence. In the end, the little girl left in disappointment. She really wanted to talk to Uncle Tree. The people in the village were afraid of her and said that she was evil. No one was willing to talk to her. Even the grandpa and grandma usually avoided her and never allowed her to sit at the table. Could it be that even Uncle Tree Demon was afraid of her? Otherwise, why would he ignore her? Plants are ruthless. Is this the realm that junior brother Musong mentioned? After the little girl left, Wuxia began to ponder. He disdained to pay attention to a mortal child. Was this also a kind of ruthlessness? Because he was a high and mighty immortal, he looked at those lowly mortals as if he was looking at insects. How bored did a person have to be to talk to ants and care about ants' life and death? Of course, he would not pay attention to little four moons, just like how he would not run to talk to ants. Was this the true meaning of the great Tao being ruthless? On the fourth day, little four moons actually ran to Wuxia again and nagged. The fifth day, the sixth day, the seventh day, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Except for the rainy and snowy weather, little four moons would enter the mountain almost every day to chat with Wuxia. Although Wuxia never spoke to little four moons, she still enjoyed it. At least, there was someone who was willing to listen to her. This was already very rare, wasn't it? Thus, as spring passed and autumn came, listening to the little girl's nagging gradually became Wuxia's daily habit. Every time the little girl was bullied in the village, she would cry in front of him and never shed tears in front of outsiders. Occasionally, when some villagers talked to the little girl and paid attention to her, she would be happy for the whole day and share her joy with Wuxia. The little girl grew up day by day and became slender and elegant. She became sensible and no longer talked mysteriously in front of outsiders. As a result, the villagers gradually looked at her with normal eyes. Among her peers, there were also many youths who were at the right age and admired her appearance. She was no longer lonely and no longer talked much. She finally grew up, but she still often came to the mountain and chatted with her Uncle Tree for a while. Wuxia still ignored her. Even if the little ant had grown up, it was still an ant. How could a human be bored enough to chat with an ant? The little girl did not mind Wuxia's disregard. She began to carefully build a fence around Wuxia. The reason was that she was afraid that some beasts would run to the tree to urinate and defecate. What a joke! What kind of cultivation did Wuxia have? If he was unwilling, which beasts would dare to defecate and pee under his tree? On days when there was little rain, she would work hard to fetch spring water and water Uncle Tree. Wuxia expressed his helplessness. He was an immortal tree and had been deprived of water for countless years. He would not die without water. Forget it, it was this little girl's filial piety. He would not blame her. The little girl was greedy. Every time a young man gave her snacks, she would bring them to the mountain and give half to Uncle Tree while eating the other half herself. Wuxia never ate these mortals' snacks in front of the little girl. However, after she left, he would sigh and put away these snacks. Later on, the little girl actually built a wooden house in the deep mountains, and said that she wanted to live next to Wuxia and stay with him forever. She even said that if Musong did not mind, she could even marry Musong. She also wanted to be a tree. She did not like to wear a mask and live in the village. She preferred to be her true self in front of Musong. Uncle Tree, if I marry you, will you marry me or not? Why are you still not saying anything? Do you dislike me? Damn it, I will ignore you. Little Four Moons did not know that when Musong heard these words, there was a ripple in his heart that had been cultivating Buddhism for many years. Initially, he wanted to cultivate the heartless Tao. However, he did not expect that this little girl would walk into his life. Unknowingly, the way Wuxia looked at the little girl was no longer like how he looked at an ant. It was not the love between a man and a woman, but he could not ignore it either. During this period, Taoist Musong came to visit once. When he saw Wuxia's reaction, he shook his head repeatedly. Among the 7 pine trees, your aptitude is the best. Besides, you are also a plant. At first, I thought that you could easily comprehend the true meaning of the heartless Great Tao. However, I didn't expect that you would lose your state of mind because of a mortal child. Everything in the world is an illusion. You still don't understand. Fine. Now that my cultivation is improving day by day, if I pay some price, I can let you see the real world. Next, the world that you will see will not be seen by others. Taoist Musang raised his hand, and a ray of purple light shot into Musi's body. Then the scene in front of Musi changed. Ningfan did not know what kind of world Musi had seen from Taoist Musang. However, from then on, Musi regained his usual coldness and treated the little girl like air. The sensitive little Four Moons immediately noticed the change in Musi. In the past, even though Musi also ignored her, he would not ignore her. His gaze would always quietly stay on her. She could feel it. Today, however, the way Musi looked at her was cold, as if he was looking at a piece of grass. It caught her off guard and made her panic. Uncle Shu, why are you ignoring me? Why aren't you looking at me anymore? Did I do something wrong? Uncle Shu, can I help you catch the insects today? The little girl was anxious. She had said a lot, but Musi did not even look at her. That gaze of his was not ignoring her, but he did not care at all. Uncle Shu, I had a quarrel with my grandfather. He said that I have grown up, and he wants to force me to marry someone. I don't want to. I want to live in the mountain for a period of time. Can you accompany me? He was still ignoring her, as cold as air. Since she was 7 years old until she was 17 years old now, his gaze had never been short of her for the past 10 years. Today, however, it moved away from her. Uncle Shu, Uncle Shu, Uncle Shu. It was night. Little April was staying in the wooden house in the mountain. It was raining heavily in the mountain. In the past, when she quarreled with her grandfather, she would also run to the wooden house in the mountain to stay. The nights in the mountain were very cold, but she did not need thick clothes and quilts because Musi would always silently dispel the coldness for her. She knew. But tonight, she was really very cold because Musi had changed. He would no longer listen to her thoughts and would no longer dispel the coldness in the mountain for her. She obviously did not do anything wrong. Why did Uncle Shu ignore her? The next day, she had a high fever and her whole body was limp. However, she still stubbornly stayed under the tree and chattered non-stop. She knew that Musi did not listen to her, but she insisted on saying it and wanted him to listen. Musi frowned. As an immortal cultivator, of course, he knew how fragile a mortal's body was. If the little girl's illness was not treated in time, it would be very dangerous. Go back. Musi almost had the impulse to talk to the little girl for the first time. However, he did not speak in the end. He thought of the world that Taoist Musang showed him. In that real world, there was no such person as little April at all. She did not exist and was just an illusion. He had to cut off all the worldly desires so that he could comprehend the great Tao of emotionlessness and possess the ability to become a palm master. In the end, no matter what the little girl said, Musi did not look at her again. On the 3rd day, the little girl held on and still stubbornly refused to leave. However, she did not speak again. She just sat under the tree in silence and touched the pine tree in a daze. On the 4th day, she fainted and could no longer hold on. There were tears at the corner of her eyes. In the end, Uncle Shu also did not care about her. Uncle Shu really did not want her anymore. Musi knew that if he allowed the little girl to fall here until she died of illness, he would completely become an emotionless person. He would definitely be able to comprehend the great Tao of emotionlessness. However, this was a painful choice. He needed to use a woman's life in exchange for the opportunity to comprehend the great Tao of emotionlessness. There were too many cases like this in the cultivation world. In order to comprehend the great Tao of emotionlessness, many old monsters would deliberately cultivate a human cauldron and pour their deepest feelings into her. After accompanying her for countless years, they would kill her to comprehend the true meaning of emotionlessness. Should I follow Taoist Musang's method and obtain the power to become a palm master or save her? The scene ended at this point. There was no conclusion. However, it did not stop Ningfan from guessing. The current Wuxia possessed the power of a palm master in his Buddha talisman. Does this mean that he chose not to save the little girl in the past in exchange for the opportunity to attain the palm master realm? Ning Fan frowned. He was not related to little April at all. He was not concerned about her life or death. However, he could not agree with Wuxia's method. If this was the Tao of emotionlessness of plants that Wuxia mentioned, he would rather not comprehend this Tao. Ning Fan did not have the intention to continue comprehending the Buddha talisman in the fourth pine. He directly turned around and left. Little friend, is it because you despise my method of comprehending the Buddha talisman that much? There is no such thing as superiority or inferiority in the Tao. There is no such thing as looking down on me. I just can't agree with it. Ning Fan halted his footsteps and said indifferently. Can't agree with it? Even though you can't agree with it, you also have no power to change it. This is the truth of the world. Have you ever seen the original appearance of this world? Do you know that kind of loneliness? That is the world that only cultivators at the Palm Master realm can see. What I saw from Junior Brother was just a part of the world. Junior Brother said that the complete world that he saw when he opened his eyes was a barren wasteland. The little girl who nagged me under the tree every day was just an illusion. Junior Brother said that it is wrong to be obsessed with those illusions that do not exist. It is a grave mistake to be moved by illusions. Junior Brother said that she does not exist in this world. What she exists is just an illusion in my heart. If I cut off my obsession, I will have a chance to see the world in his eyes. I followed Junior Brother's method and ignored her life and death step by step. I saw everything as an illusion and used that to touch the power of the Palm Master realm. However, do you know that kind of heartache? One day, she almost died in front of me. If I ignored her life and death, I would be able to follow Junior Brother's method and completely obtain the power of the Palm Master realm. In the end, I did not harden my heart to watch her die. Instead, I used my divine ability to send her back home, and used my divine ability to protect her from death. Her illness was cured in the end. However, she did not know that I was the one who saved her. She never returned to the deep mountains, and said a word to me. After that, I watched her return to the mortal world. I watched her get married and have children. I watched her live a peaceful and happy life. I turned my heart into a shadow, and kept it in the Buddha talisman forever. This shadow is the karmic hindrance of my cultivation. I can't cut it off because there is a bottleneck in my cultivation and I can't improve. I used to be the first among the 7 pine cultivators. Now I have fallen to the 4th. In the future, I might even fall to the 5th, the 6th or the 7th. If I cut off this shadow, I can achieve the Tao. However, I do not want to. If I embrace this shadow, I will no longer be in such pain. However, I do not dare to. I am a Buddha. If I embrace my obsession, all my previous cultivation will turn into nothingness under the suffering of the karmic fire. Buddha should not be obsessed. You are not an ancient Buddha. You are very lucky. Even if you retain your obsession, you will not face the suffering of the karmic fire. You can do whatever you want, but I can't. If I lose all my cultivation, I will no longer be me. I will just be an ancient pine tree without any spiritual consciousness. What I am afraid of is not the pain of losing my cultivation. I am afraid of losing my spiritual consciousness. I am afraid of losing my spiritual consciousness like a plant. I am truly heartless and forget about that little girl. I do not want to forget everything under the karmic fire. Millions of years later, that little girl would have already turned into dust. A dead person would not have any feelings, right? However, I am different. There will always be a shadow in my heart that cannot be cut off, embraced, ignored or forgotten. Of course, you will not bother to comprehend such an indecisive Buddha talisman. There is also no need for you to comprehend it. You are an ancient devil, and I am an ancient Buddha. You are not me. In the end, you will not be able to understand my feelings. However, I will not allow you to look down on my Buddha talisman because her shadow is in it. When Wuxia finished speaking, he felt much more relaxed, as if he had poured out the pain that he had suffered for millions of years. It turned out that he had already been influenced by her unknowingly, and turned into such a chatterbox in the past. She had so many things to say. Was it because she had a stomach full of discomfort, and had nowhere to vent it? Ningfan turned around and looked at the little girl in Musi's Buddha talisman again in silence. He had misunderstood a little. This Musi might have done something wrong. However, the feelings that he had fused into the Buddha talisman were not fake. Musi had said something wrong. He could not understand Musi's actions. It had nothing to do with whether he was an ancient devil or not. If I were you, I would choose to save her just like you did. However, I would not be as lost as you are now. I cannot understand your feelings. This has nothing to do with whether I am an ancient devil or not. It is because our Tao is different. If I were you. At this moment, Ningfan recalled his decision of not wanting to sever his emotions in the past. He was unwilling to sever his emotions. He was unwilling to forget Jiha even if it was for the sake of forming his core. It was not because he was an ancient devil that he dared to act recklessly. Instead, it was because he did not want to forget that he stepped into the true devil Tao. He pointed his right index finger and drew his devil talisman stroke by stroke in front of Musi. Each stroke actually caused the devil sense contained in the devil talisman to change. Originally, the picture of the devil Luo giant was standing side by side with the picture of the pine tree. However, this time, Ningfan drew the devil Luo giant under the tree. This scene was just like a young man with monstrous devil chi comprehending under the tree. No. If this young man is me, then this tree shouldn't be a pine tree. Ningfan's eyes were filled with confusion for a moment. Thousands of years of memories surged at this moment, as if they wanted to be drawn into the pattern by Ningfan. Chapter 972. Those memories kept surging in Ningfan's mind, causing him to gradually gain some enlightenment. Then, he looked at the pine tree and the devil talisman thoughtfully. He remembered the snow in 7 Apricot City. The winter plum blossoms in full bloom in the snow brought the warmth of home. It was like a brand that was deeply engraved into his blood and bones. He recalled the Ming Luo old tree in sinister sparrow sect's dark sparrow grave, the sea of bamboo in the tree world, and the deep affection in the hollow bamboo. He recalled the tree of immortality in the ruins of the ancient heavenly courts. This tree was born because of him. Fanqi, however, it had also withered because he had saved people. Under the tree of immortality, he had battled in his previous life as well as in his current life. On that day, he had fallen into devil mode and fought against many people alone. He recalled the willow tree that he had seen in the massacre hall's blood world, that was personally planted by the gigantic Gates Shadi when he was young. He had once tried to comprehend the Tao under the tree for 10,000 years. When he succeeded in his Tao, he had let out a sigh that said, "This tree is like this. How can humans endure it? This is loose." No, in his life, there were too many memories related to trees, but among them, there were no memories of pine trees. Although the pine within the devil talisman contained an extremely profound comprehension of wood, all of these comprehensions were comprehensions of others. By relying on his heaven-defying comprehension ability, Ningfan was able to use other people's insights and fuse them into his devil talisman. However, he was unable to take away other people's feelings and fuse them into his devil talisman. It was just like how he could imitate Musi and draw little April's shadow into his own wraith talisman. However, he was unable to draw the unforgettable feelings Musi had for little April. Why was Musi's Buddha talisman able to exert a trace of the power of the Palm Master, but the other tree spirits were unable to do so? Was it because this Buddha talisman contained Musi's deepest feelings? My heart is moved. Ningfan's brows were tightly knitted together. His devil talisman lacked that feeling of excitement. The method that Taoist Musang imparted to Musi is called the emotionless technique. The first step is to fuse the deepest feelings and the comprehension of the Tao law together, and draw it into the Buddha talisman. The second step seems to be to completely erase the heartbeat from the bottom of one's heart, so as to achieve a state of nothingness where the heartbeat turns into the heart of nothingness. The general steps seem to be like this. I have never used this method before, so I can only guess one or two. Fourth Mu managed to move his heart, but he couldn't destroy it. He could use a trace of the power of the Palm Realm, but he couldn't have his own Palm Realm void. If I were him, I would probably be able to draw my heart into the devil talisman, but I probably can't destroy it. Humans are not plants or trees. How can we be emotionless? If we can really reach the realm of emotionlessness, then we can't be considered as humans. Taoist Musang's method might be able to help me ascend to the throne step by step. However, this method is ultimately not suitable for me. Moreover, I always feel that this method has some flaws, but I can't tell what the flaws are at the moment. If I'm Wuxia, I'll retain that feeling in the Devil Talisman. However, I'll never erase that initial feeling. Ning Fan's eyes gradually became clear. He raised his hand and corrected the patterns on the Devil Talisman one by one. That pine tree was erased by him, and what replaced it was a tree that carried his memories of cultivation. That was a plum blossom that stood alone. The plum blossom replaced the pine tree. The strokes of the Wraith Talisman did not change, but it gave off a different feeling. The plum blossom seemed to contain a myriad of emotions, and it was enough to resonate with the spectators. The plum blossom carries the warm memories of my place of cultivation. With the plum blossom, there is a home. No matter how long I wander, I will never be alone. Old Wu and the others were stunned. They felt that the plum blossom tree that Ning Fan had just drawn was indescribably profound. As for the specific reason, they could not tell. Increasing the number of strokes was just a quantitative change, but changing from a pine tree to a plum blossom was a qualitative change. Wuxia stared at the plum blossom tree in Ning Fan's Wraith Talisman in a daze. He was the only one who could see something. That plum blossom tree had been infused with Ning Fan's emotions. However, there was no sadness in those emotions. There was only warmth in this warmth. Perhaps there were also bitter memories, such as the old devil, his parents and Ninggu. However, when he recalled the past, Ning Fan did not feel any sadness in his heart. This was something that the current Wuxia could not achieve no matter what. The plum blossom replaced the pine tree. The number of strokes of the Wraith Talisman was still 178. However, compared to the previous Wraith Talisman, the power of the Tao of Wood it contained was much stronger. Vaguely, there was even a trace of the power of the Palm Realm spreading. According to Taoist Musang's method, he would be able to cultivate a trace of the power of the Palm Realm by fusing his heart into the Devil Talisman. If his heart is extinguished, he would be able to completely cultivate the void of the Palm Realm. Heart moving. Ning Fan could easily do it. Ning Fan could sense the difficulty of extinguishing his heart. It was definitely not something that could be achieved in a short period of time. Moreover, he did not want to do it. The plum blossom tree contained his deepest emotions. If he erased these emotions and thoughts, it would go against his Tao heart. Without these emotions and thoughts, he might be able to achieve success in his great Tao, but he would no longer be himself. He did not care whether his heart is extinguished or not. What he wanted to do now was to fuse the heart moving and his comprehension into the Wraith Talisman. The great Tao of Wood became clearer in front of his eyes. Following the path that he came from, he seemed to have seen the great Tao of Wood that belonged to him. What is wood? Wood is the root of the 5 elements. Without roots, a tree would not be able to survive. Without roots, a man would not have a home. Ning Fan stared at the plum blossom tree in the Wraith Talisman. In that plum blossom tree, he found his own roots. His roots were in the Rain World, U Country and 7 Apricot City. In those countless days of wind and snow, his great Tao of Wood was also a root. Without a root, there was nothing else. Old Wu was at a loss. He seemed to have seen the memories of his family when he was young from the plum blossom tree that Ning Fan drew. He remembered the mud house in his hometown. He remembered the huge mulberry tree in his courtyard. He remembered that year when he was just a young man from a mountain village. He had never cultivated the Tao, and he had never killed anyone before. He did not have a belly full of evil tricks, and he did not have a fearsome reputation that could shake the 4 heavens. However, he had a home. In the dusky evening, he sat under the mulberry tree outside the mud house, waiting for his parents to drive the donkey cart back from the city. He waited for his father to lift him up high, and for his mother to wash his hands and cook his meals. His parents' faces were already blurred in his memory. He could no longer see them clearly. However, there were also some things that were engraved in his bones. He could not forget them no matter how many years had passed. Baby, who are you, hungry? The weather is getting cold. Is my son cold? When mother saves some money, I will make a new coat for my son. Hot tears welled up in old Wu's eyes. He had walked on the lonely path of cultivation for 34 million years. It had been so long that he had actually forgotten that he once had a home. Even someone as vicious and cunning as him actually had a soft spot in his heart that no one could bully or touch. Zen Master Songguo was also at a loss. Looking at the plum blossom tree pattern, he also thought of the trees in his hometown. He thought of his home before he cultivated the Tao. He thought of his mother staying up late to light the oil lamp and buy him new shoes. He thought of her reminders. My son has grown up. Once the new year is over, you will enter the city to study. When you go out, don't be stingy with money. Don't worry about your family. Listen to your master. What happened after that? After that, he entered the school in the city and studied hard for 4 years. Then he was caught up in the war. After that, his mother was gone and so was his home. His heart was like dead ashes. He entered the Taoism gate and walked on the path of cultivation by chance. He cultivated all the way to the immortal venerable realm. In the current cultivation world of the Eastern Heaven, the heavens would tremble 3 times with just a stomp of his feet. He already had a high status and authority, but he had long forgotten where his mother's grave was as a monk. His heart was filled with guilt and sorrow. Trees have roots. Does he also have them? Each of the members of the Wood Island sect revealed a bewildered expression. They thought of the trees in their hometown and the yellowish but vivid human figures in their memories. What did this young man comprehend? He actually has such a powerful force that can make a group of cultivators immerse themselves in it. Wuxia was a little shocked. 1,000 people comprehended 1,000 different great Tao of wood. For example, Wuxia saw pine needles, Lu saw the sound of pine trees, and Wu saw the lines of pine trees. What did Ningfan see? I don't know. There was no difference in the level of the Tao, but there was a difference in strength. Obviously, the great Tao of wood that Ningfan comprehended had already formed its embryonic form. Moreover, it was extremely close to the origin of the great Tao of wood. Otherwise, it was impossible for it to produce such a powerful force that resonated with the group of cultivators. After the shock, it was followed by deep sorrow. In a daze, Wuxia seemed to see that intelligent and charming little girl again. She was walking towards him step by step while chattering nonstop. He was just a person who gained sentience from plants. He did not have parents or family members. He had never experienced the feeling of warmth before. Only Little Four Moons had once brought him warmth as a human. When facing Little Four Moons, he did not dare to have feelings for her, but he also could not be heartless originally. He had already forgotten the warmth that Little Four Moons brought him. However, Ningfan's devil talisman had evoked all his memories. With her, he would have a family to rely on. Without her, he would be homeless. Humans are not plants or trees. How can we be heartless? He could not be heartless. Wood is the great Tao. With wood as the root, the Tao of pine, Tao of plum and Tao of bamboo can be derived. All the plants in the world belong to this Tao. In order to comprehend such a great Tao, I must find a point and use it as a breakthrough point. The 7-apricot tree is my root. Following this route, I can see even more trees. They are like shadows behind me. These trees carry the memories of my journey. Only by integrating these memories into my comprehension can this apricot tree be considered complete. Ningfan continued to raise his hand and drew the shadow of the Ming Luo ancient tree with just a few strokes on the devil talisman. Beside the Ming Luo ancient tree, he drew the shadow of a sea of bamboos. The hollow bamboo had a soul dwelling. The root of the soul resided in the heart of the bamboo. The root of the soul and the heart of the bamboo were inseparable. Ningfan thought of the dark sparrow's grave, Mingke, the rogue demon Muluo, and the pass where he rampaged through the tree world. The number of strokes on the devil talisman kept increasing. 179 strokes, 180 strokes, 181 strokes, 198 strokes. With 20 strokes, he drew the shadow of the Ming Luo ancient tree and the bamboo sovereign. The picture of the devil talisman turned into a devil sitting under the plum blossom, while the background was the shadow of the Ming Luo ancient tree and the sea of bamboos. Ningfan's hands did not stop. On the background of the devil talisman, he drew the shadow of the undying tree of the ancient heavenly court. This shadow contained his undying obsession for 2 lifetimes. 199 strokes, 200 strokes. When the number of strokes on the devil talisman exceeded 200, Ning Fan's eyes suddenly turned solemn. He actually could not draw the 201st stroke no matter how hard he tried, be it the devil talisman or the Buddha talisman. The number of strokes on the devil talisman was the ancestral talisman. However, even among the 9 great devil ancestors of the ancient devil's abyss, only a few of them could increase the number of strokes on the devil talisman to more than 200 strokes. After the 200th stroke, not only did he need to comprehend it, but he also needed to smear the talisman with his ancestral blood. Ning Fan did not know about this, but there was a kind of instinct that urged him to do so. After the 200th stroke, there seems to be a barrier between me and this devil talisman again. The devil blood in my body is burning, giving me the instinct of an ancient devil. I want to dye my blood on the devil talisman. It seems that only by doing so can I continue to draw the devil talisman. It was as if there was a voice from his bloodline that kept urging Ning Fan to dye the devil talisman with his ancestral blood. Ning Fan only pondered for a moment and followed this ancient devil instinct. He raised his hand and bit the tip of his finger, drawing the 201st stroke of blood on the devil talisman. This is the might of the ancestral blood. Old Wu and the others gradually woke up from their memories. When they noticed Ning Fan's action of dyeing the devil talisman with his ancestral blood, their expressions changed. After the 9 ancestors, there were no more devils with ancestral blood in this world. If the news of Ning Fan possessing ancestral blood were to spread out, it would certainly cause a huge commotion in the ancient devil's abyss. With the might of the ancestral blood, Ning Fan's hands moved at lightning speed. He continuously drew 9 strokes on the devil talisman, and drew half of the shadow of the undying tree. When he drew the 210th stroke, Ning Fan paused for a moment. He did not draw it immediately. The previous 9 strokes had actually used up an entire drop of Mo Luo's ancestral blood. After using up the ancestral blood, it could no longer be used to ignite his blood. However, the ancestral devil aura force on Ning Fan's body did not weaken at all. Instead, it became much stronger than before. The might of the ancestral blood had already fused into his devil talisman. It gave Ning Fan an illusion that he could only be considered as the true ancestral devil after his blood fused into the talisman. Only then would he be qualified to cultivate his ancient devil cultivation to the peak. It seems like it's inevitable for the ancestral blood to fuse into the talisman. Could it be that I also need to fuse my ancestral level demon blood into my spirit will in the future? Does ancestral level divine blood also need to be fused into the heart aperture? I have 4 drops of Mo Luo's ancestral blood. The might of 1 drop of ancestral blood is enough for me to add 9 more strokes on the ancestral talisman. If I want to add more strokes, I'll need to use the rest of the ancestral blood. Without any hesitation, Ning Fan dipped his blood again, and drew the ancestral blood into the devil talisman. After using up the 2nd drop of ancestral blood, Ning Fan drew the complete image of the undying tree. After using up the 3rd drop of ancestral blood, Ning Fan drew half of the giant willow that was planted by the Ju Men Sha. After using up the 4th drop of ancestral blood, Ning Fan drew the complete image of the giant willow. However, because he had used up all of his ancestral blood, he could not add more strokes to the devil talisman. In the end, the number of strokes on the devil talisman stopped at 236. Unfortunately, he did not have enough ancestral blood. Otherwise, he could still draw more trees on the devil talisman, and infuse more emotions into it. Perhaps, when he obtains more ancestral blood in the future, he could continue to dye the ancestral talisman with his devil blood and add more strokes. It's actually the devil talisman that was drawn on 236 strokes. Master's innate talent in devil cultivation is really terrifying. If he continues to grow, he would at least become a figure on the same level as the 9 great devil ancestors. If he can enter the ancient devil 9 abyss, he would be able to recruit a large number of fanatical devil cultivators with his devil talisman, and make them his servants. Old Wu's vanity was greatly satisfied. If his master became stronger, he would also be able to gain more face, wouldn't he? Now that he had Ning Fan as his master, he no longer felt any shame. It was not shameful at all to be the servant of a figure on the same level as the 9 great devil ancestors. In the ancient devil abyss, there would probably be many people who would envy him. The sadness on Wuxia's face had already faded away. What replaced it was a bitter smile. I don't know what kind of Tao this young man has comprehended, but I can see that he has infused his emotions into the past. There might not be no sadness in those emotions. However, when he looks back at the past, he doesn't feel any sadness but only warmth. If I can also sweep away the sadness in my heart, perhaps, unbeknownst to him, at the moment when such a thought emerged in his mind, the bottleneck that he had been stuck in for many years actually loosened a little. Wuxia was stunned at first. Then he let out a long sigh and closed his eyes. He seemed to have found the path that he should walk in the future. It was not having emotions or being emotionless but forgetting them, supreme forgetting emotions, crossing truth, abandoning emptiness, breaking thought. In fact, every step of the cultivation of the 3 true immortal realms was leading the cultivator to the path of supreme forgetting emotions. However, there were too few cultivators who could truly achieve supreme forgetting emotions. Among 10,000 immortal cultivators, there were usually only 1 or 2 of them. Occasionally, there were cultivators who could achieve supreme forgetting emotions at the abandoning emptiness realm like Yuan Yao. However, there were also people who could not achieve it even after cultivating all the way to the immortal king realm like Sun Luo. In the past, Wuxia also could not achieve this. However, from now on, he would try his best to achieve it. It was not that he wanted to forget little 4 months, but he wanted to bury that feeling deep in his heart. He just wanted to forget the sadness, and keep that feeling in the Buddha talisman forever. Is this the heartless grass and trees that Junior Brother mentioned? It was not the feeling of being moved nor the feeling of being destroyed, but the feeling of being forgotten. May I ask what kind of grand Tao of wood did you comprehend, little friend? Wuxia suddenly smiled with relief. The knot in his heart for many years seemed to have finally been solved a little. It's the root. Ningfan was slightly surprised. It seemed like Wuxia had comprehended something. Otherwise, he would not be so relieved. Root. Wuxia's heart skipped a beat. He was slightly absent-minded and muttered to himself. Yes, she is my root. Ningfan was speechless. This conversation could not continue. This Wuxia completely looked like he was deeply in love with little 4 months. No matter what he said, it would always involve his little 4 months. However, from the looks of it, this person's eyes were no longer at a loss. Has he already figured out how to deal with the negative karma in his heart? This is just a small gift for little friend. Consider it as my thanks for helping me solve the knot in my heart. Wuxia gave all of his true essence of building wood to Ningfan. Ningfan knew that some of his actions had touched Wuxia. Thus he did not reject this gift. He kept all of the true essence of building wood and bid farewell to Wuxia. Then he followed the others and walked towards the 3rd forbidden area. The ancient pine in the 3rd forbidden area had a stronger aura force than the 4th forbidden area. The cultivation base of the tree spirit Musan was also much higher than Wuxia. When he heard from Zen Master Songhua that Ningfan had 236 devil talismans, Musan was very touched. He declared that he was willing to give Ningfan the true essence of building wood as a thank you gift as long as he takes a look at Ningfan's devil talismans. Having more than 200 devil talismans and Buddha talismans was really rare. In Western heaven, there were almost no ancient Buddhas who could cultivate more than 200 Buddha talismans. In the ancient devil's abyss, after the 9 ancestors suppressed it, it was even more impossible to see anyone who possessed 200 devil talismans. Musen did not ask for anything else. He just wanted to take a look at Ningfan's devil talismans. Then he was confident that he could get confirmation from it. Musen also showed his Buddha talismans to Ningfan. Ningfan only glanced at them briefly, and did not pay much attention to them. Ningfan already had his own understanding of the great Tao of wood. It was meaningless for him to use other people's understanding for reference. Besides, he had already used up his ancient devil ancestral blood. He could not continue to draw more devil talismans for the time being. Musen probably would not be able to see him increase the number of devil talismans anymore. After looking at Wuxia's Buddha talisman, Ningfan kept having a feeling that Musan's talisman was not pleasing to his eyes. Mu Xi's Buddha talisman had been infused with extreme emotions and emotions. In comparison, Mu San's Buddha talisman did not have emotions. Even if the number of strokes on his Buddha talisman surpassed Mu Xi's, it still could not enter Ning Fan's eyes. Mu Xi has already untied the knot in his heart. Perhaps one day, he will be able to regain the position of Mu Yi. After Ning Fan showed Mu San his devil talisman, he kept the true essence and left. Then he went to the second and first forbidden areas. Similarly, he only showed them his devil talismans, and left after receiving the gifts. After visiting the 7 great forbidden areas one by one, Ning Fan bid farewell to Songgua and the others and returned to the monastery alone. Old Wu stuck to Ning Fan like a piece of sticky candy. He wanted to ask this cheap master about the great Tao of wood, but Ning Fan rejected him. Sorry, Ning Fan did not have the time to entertain Old Wu now. He had just created his own devil talisman, and drew the 4 drops of ancestral blood on it. Now was the time for him to comprehend it, and he could not allow anyone to disturb him. As soon as he returned to the monastery, Ning Fan immediately went into the profound Yin world. With a wave of his hand, hundreds of green light balls flew into the sky and condensed into a drop of spiritual liquid that was as green as jade. This drop of spiritual liquid was the true form of the true essence of the builder wood. Sensing the vast amount of energy contained in the true essence of the builder wood, it would be a lie if Ning Fan said that he was not moved. The energy contained in this drop of true essence of the builder wood was completely comparable to a complete heaven-grade fierce elemental crystal. In other words, as long as he refines this drop of true essence of the builder wood, he would be able to cultivate the complete yin-yang Tao of wood. The only troublesome thing was that he still lacked a profound wood attribute cultivation method to cultivate the yin-yang Tao of wood on the wooden island. There were a few 9-stars wood attribute cultivation methods. However, all of them were Buddhist cultivation methods. As an ancient devil, Ning Fan would certainly not cultivate them. There were also no suitable cultivation methods in the hidden scripture tower that Great Emperor Ancient Chaos gave him. As such, Ning Fan had other thoughts. He wanted to create a cultivation method of his own, and inscribe all the insights of wood that he had obtained this time into it. In ancient times, some low-level immortal emperors could already create 9-stars cultivation methods. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base and his comprehension ability at the 2nd level of the heavenly being realm, he was fully qualified to create his own cultivation method. The devil talisman had already integrated the power of the Tao of wood into it. If he were to create his own cultivation method, he would create a wood attribute devil cultivation method. Ning Fan had already cultivated 3 of the 9 great divine yin-yang Tao. They were rain, war, and darkness. It was time for him to cultivate the devil yin-yang Tao as well. With the insights that I, Ning Fan, have obtained in my lifetime, I shall open the ancient scripture. Ning Fan faced the direction of the hidden scripture tower in the profound Yin world, and beckoned with his palm. All of a sudden, scrolls of immemorial fiend god cultivation methods flew out from the tower, and piled up in the clouds like a mountain. Ning Fan flicked his sleeve again. Carrying the mountainous cultivation methods, he directly flew into a tower that had existed for thousands of years. If he were to create his own cultivation method, these countless cultivation methods could be used as a reference. The 10 days that Ning Fan had agreed to meet with Taoist Musang passed in the blink of an eye. In the monastery, 2 human figures directly walked out from the boundless void. They were none other than Musang and Xiang Bozi. As soon as the 2 of them appeared, they saw Ning Fan waiting for them under an ancient pine tree in the courtyard. Although it had only been 10 days since they last met, the current Ning Fan actually gave Musang and Xiang Bozi a feeling that his Tao was in harmony with nature. It was as if the person standing in front of them was not Ning Fan but a tree that had taken root on the wooden island, and was connected to nature. Even when he breathed, he gave off a feeling of endless life and death. Without a doubt, this was the sign of success in the Tao of wood. Oh, after not seeing you for 10 days, your cultivation base seems to have improved quite a lot. The corner of Musang's mouth was curled up into a smile, but his heart was filled with astonishment. If he was not mistaken, Ning Fan, the successor of Ancient Chaos, had actually cultivated the 4th type of yin-yang in just 10 days. What surprised Musang even more was that the circulation of the Tao of wood in Ningfan's body was extremely strange. It was different from any of the wood cultivation methods that he knew. Could it be that this young man cultivates a lost devil cultivation method? It looks a little unfamiliar. I have never heard of this cultivation method before. Musang asked casually while feeling puzzled. May I know the name of the cultivation method that little friend is cultivating? The first volume of the Tao scripture. Ningfan casually told Musang the name of the cultivation method that he had created. The reason why it was called the Tao scripture and not the devil scripture was because Ningfan had not only written the Tao of wood and yin-yang into the scripture, but he had also added the 3 great yin-yang cultivation methods of rain, war and darkness into the scripture. Compared to piecing together 27 cultivation methods, Ningfan was more willing to create a more complete cultivation method that directly covered the 27 types of yin-yang that he had cultivated. This was not an easy task. However, to a cultivator at the second level of the heavenly being realm like him, it was not something impossible. Chapter 973. The first volume of the Tao scripture? Both Taoists Musang and Xiang Bozi were slightly stunned. Then, both of them laughed and shook their heads. This cultivation method actually dares to use the Tao scripture as its name. The cultivator who created this scripture is really arrogant. Could it be that he thinks that this scripture can encompass all the great Taos in the world? Could it be that he thinks that he is a legendary fourth-step immortal emperor? One should know that even the legendary sages would not dare to use the Tao scripture as their name for their cultivation methods. Every cultivation method in the world could only depict part of the great Taos. For example, the yin-yang transformation and chaotic loop art of the ancient chaos great emperor, the undying great emperor's undying scripture, the black rain scripture and the black light scripture that Ningfan had cultivated before. According to the ancient scrolls, only fourth-step immortal emperors were qualified to create their own Tao scripture. The so-called Tao scripture was a supreme scripture that could truly encompass the great Taos in the world. It was a supreme treasure that could suppress the eternal cycle of reincarnation. Besides, every Tao scripture was unique. Other than the immortal emperor, who created the Tao scripture, no one else could cultivate it. From Musang and Xiang Bozi's point of view, the cultivation method that Ningfan cultivated was naturally not the real Tao scripture, even though it was called the Tao scripture. The real Tao scripture could not be taught to others. It could not be learned. One could only create it himself. Then the question was, could Ningfan create his own Tao scripture? No matter how highly Musang and Xiang Bozi thought of Ningfan, they would not think that he could create his own Tao scripture. Only fourth-step immortal emperors could create Tao scriptures without exception. Seeing Musang and Xiang Bozi burst into laughter, Ningfan was puzzled. When he asked them casually, he became speechless and did not know whether to laugh or cry. During his days of cultivation in the Time Tower, Ningfan had spent 1,000 years comprehending a cultivation method that belonged to him from the Black Rain scripture, the Undefeatable scripture and the Black Radiant scripture. Then he added his comprehension of wood into it, causing this cultivation method to possess the 4 great attributes of rain, battle, darkness and wood at the same time. The name of this cultivation method was temporarily named the Tao scripture. Since he planned to add other cultivation methods of yin and yang in the future, he only created the first volume of the cultivation method for now. He would create the second and third volume in the future. According to Ningfan's plan, each of the Tao scriptures contained 9 types of yin and yang. Adding the 3 scriptures together, there would be a total of 27 yin and yang. After that, Ningfan entered the second Millennium Tower, and spent another 1,000 years to refine the true essence of the builder wood using the cultivation method of the first volume of the Tao scripture. Then he successfully cultivated the first devil yin-yang technique, wood yin-yang, which allowed his ancient devil's cultivation base to skyrocket. From the 7th nirvana of the heavenly devil, he advanced all the way to the 8th nirvana of the heavenly devil. After that, he entered the 3rd Millennium Tower. Using the cultivation method from the first volume of the Tao scripture, he reorganized the 3 great yin and yang energies in his body, namely the rain, battle and darkness. After sorting them out, The 4 types of yin and yang circulated through the same cultivation technique. There was no longer a barrier between them, and when they were stacked together, their power would increase significantly. The only thing he didn't expect was that the name Tao scripture could not be used carelessly. Before this, Ning Fan really did not know that the Tao scripture was actually exclusive to 4th step immortal sovereigns. He just casually called it the Tao scripture because he was too lazy to give it a name. Forget it. So be it if I'm arrogant. Anyway, I'm too lazy to think of a new name. The thing that I'm not good at the most is coming up with names. Besides, it's not like I won't have the chance to step into the 4th step in my life. If there comes a day when this cultivation method can become the true Saint Defire Tao scripture, it will be worthy of its name. Mu Song did not continue the topic of the Tao scripture. Since Ning Fan was already waiting for him at this place, he did not want to talk nonsense with him. He directly flicked his sleeve and thousands of rays of green light shot out. As the green light swirled around them, the 3 of them instantly disappeared from this place and entered a world filled with dazzling green light. This is the Palm Void Space. Ning Fan's eyes immediately narrowed. That's right. This place is the Palm Void Space of my wood palm. In this void space, I am the king of the great Tao of wood. You have just cultivated the wood yin-yang realm. You should be able to feel this, right? Can you tell how many layers of void world are in my palm void space? Mu Song asked with a smile. He seemed to have a very good understanding of the ancient chaos absolute art. He actually knew the name of the wood yin-yang realm. Void world? What's that? Ning Fan asked in confusion. Oh, little friend, you don't know? Each palm void was made up of several layers of void realms stacked on top of each other. The more void worlds there are, the stronger the palm void space will be. In the current Dharma ending era, there are very few immortal emperors who are at the same level as the palm void space. It is said that during the ancient era, the immortal emperors who have more void space can easily suppress the immortal emperors who have fewer void space. Xiang Bozi explained patiently. While they were talking, Mu Song and Xiang Bozi carried Ning Fan and flew towards a certain direction. It was Ning Fan's first time hearing about the knowledge of the palm void space. Naturally, he listened attentively. He had just cultivated the wood yin-yang realm. Thus, he could exert a small amount of the power of the palm void space. However, he was not the real palm wood immortal emperor. After entering this place, Ning Fan felt a great pressure. It was as if Taoist Mu Song could deprive him of the right to use the Tao of wood in this place with just a thought. Is this the power of the palm void space? Ning Fan's eyes sparkled with green light. He looked at the boundless void space. The great Tao of the heavenly cycle was extremely clear in front of his eyes. The great Tao of the palm void space was arranged in layers. Each layer was a layer of void world. Ning Fan counted them carefully and answered. There are a total of 309 layers of void worlds in this place. Little friend, I really admire your sharp eyes. Mu Song and Xiang Bozi were greatly surprised. They clicked their tongues and praised him. One should know that even a first-level quasi-saint like Xiang Bozi would find it difficult to count the exact number of void worlds in this place. He could only get a rough estimate and there would be some errors. However, Ning Fan could accurately tell the number of void worlds in this place. The 2 of them could not help but be moved. Especially Mu Song, his attention towards Ning Fan's had once again risen to an unprecedented height. Within the Eastern Heaven, there are only 3 old monsters who can see through the number of void worlds in just a glance. All of them are second-level quasi-saints. However, this young man is able to do it. The 3 of them continued to fly at full speed. Gradually, the green light in the void space began to weaken. As they continued to move forward, a large patch of golden light came from afar. At the center of the golden light was a painting scroll that was as tall as the sky. It hung in the boundless void space. It was grand and majestic, giving off an extremely solemn and dignified feeling. The paper of the painting scroll had already turned yellow. It seemed to have existed for countless years. There were large patches of blank space on the paper. There was almost nothing drawn on it except for 2 carps. One of them was black and the other was white. They were extremely agile and could even swim in the painting. The black fish had white eyes and the white fish had black eyes. When Ning Fan saw this gigantic painting, The yin-yang locket inside his body trembled slightly as if it resonated with the painting. Fishes of yin-yang. This gigantic painting contains an extremely massive power of yin and yang. It actually resonated with the yin-yang locket. Could it be the second map of the ancient times, Golden Sky Black Map? Ning Fan was right. This gigantic painting was the second map of the ancient times that was passed down from the Southern Heaven Golden Talisman Palace. After passing through several hands, it fell into the hands of Taoist Musang. This Golden Sky Black Map was extremely strange. The yin-yang fishes in the painting were swimming in a very harmonious and calm manner. It was so calm that it was like a dead silence. However, amidst the dead silence, Ning Fan felt an unprecedented sense of danger. It was as if once the yin-yang fishes break free from the painting, they would turn into a terrifying killing weapon that could bring him life-threatening danger. The surroundings of the gigantic painting seemed to be sealed by an invisible four-sided grand formation. After entering this sealed area, Musang and Xiangbozi seemed to be extremely cautious despite their cultivation bases. It was as if they were extremely afraid of this second map of the ancient times. Ning Fan fell into deep thought. It seems like the sense of danger that he felt was not an illusion. This map might really be very dangerous. Below the gigantic painting, there were more than 100 praying mats floating in the air. On each of the praying mats sat a skeleton. Judging from the color of the skeletons, the lowest cultivation base of these skeletons was at the thought fragmentation realm, while the highest cultivation base was even at the immortal emperor realm. Why are there so many skeletons of experts in this place? Ning Fan asked with a solemn expression. These are all cultivators who once asked me for help. They wanted to help me comprehend the Golden Sky Black Map, so that I would owe them karma. Unfortunately, most of them have died in this map. The Golden Sky Black Map is the second map of the ancient times. People only know that this map contains the great Tao of Yin and Yang, which can help them break through the bottleneck of the immortal emperor realm. However, they don't know that this map has other great uses. Until now, only one person has successfully taken something out from this map and handed it to me. That person is Sun Luo. Because of this, I owe him karma. In the end, I opened his eyes and helped him settle the matter of the dark race. Other than Sun Luo, no one else has been able to bring anything out from this map. Moreover, there are only a handful of people who can come back to life from the map. There were also quasi-Saint Realm old monsters like Old Man Xiang who wanted to study this map. Unfortunately, they too could not bring anything out from the map. At most, they could only barely survive in this map. Even Senior Xiangbozi could only barely survive in this map. Ning Fan frowned. This map seemed to be much more dangerous than what he had imagined. Don't worry. You are the successor of Ancient Chaos, and you have even cultivated the Ancient Chaos 5 swords. You can even sever the Tao source. If you enter this map, you will be like a fish in water. As long as you are careful, you won't be in too much danger. Even if there is danger, this old man will be able to forcefully pull you out of the diagram. However, it was Xiangbozi who comforted him. Taoist Musang continued. This Golden Sky Black Map contains a world inside the painting. There is something I need in the world inside the painting. If you can bring some out from inside, I will help you fight against the dark race. If you can't do it, I won't help you even if I have to give Xiangbozi face. Ning Fan remained silent for a while and asked, I wonder what Senior wants me to bring out from the world inside the painting. Eyes. Eyes? What eyes? Ning Fan was surprised and a little confused. You don't have to ask too much. Once you enter the world inside the painting, you will understand what I want. After that, Taoist Musang gave Ning Fan a detailed explanation of the two methods to enter the world inside the painting. The first method was to separate one's primordial spirit from one's body and enter the world inside the painting with only one's primordial spirit. This method would not allow one to bring magic treasures with him. Relatively speaking, it was more dangerous. The second method was to directly enter the world inside the painting with the talisman brush of the Golden Talisman Palace. The second ancient map was drawn by the ancestor of the Golden Talisman Palace. Therefore, the disciples of the Golden Talisman Palace had special privileges to enter the painting. The talisman brush was the symbol of the disciples of the Golden Talisman Palace. By holding the talisman brush, one could enter the painting together with his physical body and magic treasures. The only drawback was that each talisman brush could only be used once. Then, it would be destroyed and could not be used anymore. Unfortunately, the destruction of the Golden Talisman Palace was already a thing that happened a long time ago. The talisman brushes of the Golden Talisman Palace that are still in the world are already rare. Today, there are almost no more than a few of them left in the world. The last talisman brush that I have collected has already been used. I'm afraid you can't use the second method to enter the painting anymore. You can only use the first method. Separate your primordial spirit from your body and enter the world inside the painting. Taoist Musang said helplessly. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. He seemed to have accidentally obtained one of the talisman brushes of the Golden Talisman Palace before. Without the talisman brush, he would have to separate his primordial spirit from his body and enter the world inside the painting. Moreover, he would not be able to bring the God-exterminating shield, the yin-yang locket and many other magic treasures along with him. It was extremely dangerous. Fortunately, he had a talisman brush with him. Thus, he did not have to worry about it anymore. Talisman brush, I have it. Ning Fan turned his hand and took out the talisman brush of the Golden Talisman Palace that had been lying around for many years. This was the spoils of war that he had obtained from Bone Sovereign when he was roaming the Rain World. Bone Sovereign was known as his greatest enemy when he was young. Now that he thought about it, he was just a Void Fragmentation Realm Junior. Oh, you actually have the talisman brush of the Golden Talisman Palace? Musang was slightly surprised. However, he did not ask Ning Fan about the origin of the talisman brush. Instead, he directly told Ning Fan how to use the talisman brush. The talisman brush of the Golden Talisman Palace could only be activated by using the Heavenly Cold Chi and the Earth Vein Demonic Flame. To the cultivators of the 9 worlds, the Heavenly Cold Chi and the Earth Vein Demonic Flame were supreme treasures. However, to the cultivators of the 4 heavens, they were not precious items at all. Ning Fan already had the Heavenly Cold Chi and the Earth Vein Demonic Flame. Thus, he directly activated the talisman brush and walked towards the golden sky and black map step by step. Then he pointed his brush at the towering painting. Instantly, ripples began to appear on the paper of the huge painting like water ripples. The fishes of yin and yang that were swimming freely gradually disappeared. The yellowish paper also changed its color and became brighter. Like a mirror, it reflected the entire world in the mirror. That was the world inside the painting of the golden sky and black map. Deacon of the Golden Talisman Palace. Wuxia. The talisman brush has confirmed. Permission to enter. A hoarse voice without any tone came from the top of the painting. Go. If you can bring out the eyes that Old Man Mu needs, do so. If you can't, give up and escape from the world inside the painting. If you encounter any danger that you can't handle, I will pull you out of the world inside the painting even if I have to use all my strength. I won't let you die inside. Xiang Bozi patted Ning Fan's shoulder and encouraged him. Ning Fan nodded and stepped into the world inside the painting. In order to help him fight against the dark races, Xiang Bozi had put in so much effort. Ning Fan naturally would not disappoint Xiang Bozi's kindness. As soon as he entered the world inside the painting, the talisman brush in Ning Fan's hand immediately turned into ashes. His surroundings were filled with boundless white mist. He could not see anything clearly. Besides, there was an invisible force pressing on his body. It was extremely heavy, causing him to continuously fall towards the bottom of the white mist. It was difficult for him to keep floating in the air. After falling for an unknown period of time, the white mist in front of him suddenly disappeared. The gravitational force that was pressing on his body also finally reduced. Ning Fan slowly landed on the ground. What entered his sight was actually an extremely familiar city. He actually landed in the Ning clan of Haining. There's no mistake. He was very familiar with every brick and tile in this place. He had walked through this long street countless times. This was the hometown where he and his younger brother, Ninggu, grew up. I've clearly stepped into the world inside the painting. Why would I appear here? Are the scenes here all illusions? Ning Fan's eyes glowed with green light. His second-level heavenly being eyes could see through all illusions in the world. However, he could not see anything fake about this city. Can't I see through the illusions of this place? Ning Fan knitted his brows and walked on this familiar yet strange street. The soybean milk stall at the corner of the street was steaming hot. However, he could not see the owner of the stall or any customers. The stone table under the old tree was filled with unfinished chess pieces. However, he could not see the person playing the chess pieces. In some courtyards, there were clothes that had not been dried yet. There were also some houses that had smoke rising from the chimneys. However, this city was completely empty. There was not a single person in sight. This was an empty city. Not to mention humans, there was not even a single insect, fish or bird. He no longer walked in the city. Instead, he spread his spirit sense. His spirit sense, which was as vast as rain, instantly spread from Haining to the entire Wu country. Then it spread towards the entire Rain world. The entire Rain world was empty. There was not a single living person in sight. I wonder where the eyes that Senior Musong wants are. If they aren't in the Rain world, would they be in the other 8 lower worlds? Ning Fan's body swayed and turned into a ray of golden light. In an instant, he vanished without a trace. He had directly passed through the Rain world and arrived at the other worlds. The Sword world, the Tree world, the Mountain world. Ning Fan passed through the lower worlds one after another, but he did not see a single living person. He also could not find the eyes that Musong mentioned. If they aren't in the 9 worlds, would they be in the 4 heavens? As soon as Ning Fan thought of this, the surrounding scenery immediately changed. In an instant, he appeared in the 1,000-year sect of the chaotic devil star in the eastern heaven immortal world. Similarly, there was not a single living person in the entire chaotic devil star region. Ning Fan was sure that this place was just an illusion. Thus, he did not find it strange. He activated the rain art and spread his divine perception across the entire eastern sky. Unsurprisingly, all the cultivation planets were empty without a single soul in sight. All of a sudden, Ning Fan sensed the chi of a living person from a certain direction. Without saying a word, he immediately used the soaring golden light and dashed towards that direction. In that area of the starry sky, there was a young man with disheveled hair. He was walking step by step in the void towards Ning Fan's direction. His footsteps were very slow and his body was a little stiff. If it wasn't for the chi of a living person in his body, he would probably be mistaken as a zombie. His long, disheveled hair covered his face, causing Ning Fan to be unable to see his face throughout his journey. He's getting closer and closer. Ning Fan flew all the way to his destination and stopped 100 zhang away from that person. He stared at him vigilantly. When that person sensed Ning Fan's arrival, he also stopped moving forward. He slowly raised his head and said in a stiff tone, "No. Junior brothers Wuxia. Intruder. Kill." As soon as that person's killing intent surged, a violent gust of wind blew across heaven and earth, blowing his disheveled hair away. His face was covered in blood and dirt. His ferocious expression, and a pair of hollow eyes that were hollowed out. Before Ning Fan could say anything, that person had already dashed towards him. His mid-human profound realm aura force immediately swept across the starry sky. Has this person's eyes been dug out by someone? Ning Fan wore a thoughtful expression. He casually used the finger-pointing heavenly technique and directly fixed that strange person on the spot. Of course, it was impossible for him to be injured by a mere human profound life immortal realm cultivator. Chapter 974. With Ning Fan's cultivation base, if he wants to immobilize a life immortal realm being, that life immortal realm being would never be able to break free no matter what. The strange man was locked in place and unable to struggle free. He immediately roared like a wild beast, wild and furious. Ning Fan ignored the roars of the eccentric. With a flash, he arrived in front of the eccentric. He stretched out his palm and placed it on the top of the eccentric's head, circulating the reverse spirit technique in an attempt to pry into the eccentric's memories. However, to his surprise, this strange person's sea of consciousness was actually completely pitch black, like an ocean formed from ink, and he was unable to see anything clearly. Then, a drop of black ink suddenly flew out from the top of the strange man's head and rushed towards Ning Fan's head. This strange change happened too quickly. Even with Ning Fan's reaction speed, he was still caught off guard. Even if an immortal Emperor realm expert were to search the strange man's memories, it would be very difficult for him to avoid the attack of the ink. At the critical moment, a layer of golden light shield automatically protected Ning Fan's body, blocking the ink and preventing it from getting close to him. When the attack missed, the ink seemed to have a mind of its own and instantly fled far away at a speed that could not be seen clearly. As for the strange man's physical body, after the ink left his body, it gradually faded like a drop of ink in water. It gradually disappeared from the world, as if it had never existed. That ink, what is that thing? Ning Fan's face was as calm as still water. If it wasn't for the god-exterminating shield that he had with him, the ink would certainly have seeped into his head. No one could predict what would happen to him after that. Ink's attack speed was too fast. Even among immortal emperors, there were probably not many that could defend against it. The speed at which the ink flew was unimaginably fast. With Ning Fan's speed, it would be very difficult for him to catch up to that drop of ink. Just as Jiang Yi was muttering to himself, the sound of water dripping could be heard in the endless starry sky. It sounded very near yet very far. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. When he tried to listen carefully, the sound of water dripping became extremely strange, and he could no longer hear it. Following that, another voice rang out in the endless void. It sounded like a woman who was extremely far away, yet extremely close at the same time. She was softly whispering to him. "Little butterfly, don't sleep, wake up. Little butterfly, don't sleep, don't sleep." Whose voice was that? It was so familiar, yet so strange. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed as he recalled that he had heard this voice in the scripture depository pagoda, given to him by ancient chaos. In the 10th level of the hidden scripture tower, there was a stone door that only saints could push open. There was once a voice inside the stone door that said to Ning Fan, "I'm your key, but you've forgotten about me. You don't recognize me." Was that the voice of the woman who claimed to be the key? Ning Fan's expression turned slightly blank. He was very sure that the voice just now did not come from the profound Yin world. It was the same voice, but it seemed to be coming from another space-time continuum. It was so far away, but it felt as if it was right beside one's ear. It was so close, but it felt as if one of them was awake and the other was asleep. They existed in intersecting time and space, like day and night, like business, like life and death, like remembering and forgetting, like they would never be able to meet again. This place is extremely strange. First, it was the world in the painting that was similar to the 4 heavens and 9 worlds. There was no one in the city, but there were traces of people existing. Then there was the strange man, and then there was the ink. Finally, there was the sound of water dripping and the familiar yet unfamiliar voice of a woman. Ning Fan fell into deep thought. He could not understand everything that happened in this place. There were many things that went against common sense in this place, but they also followed some kind of strange logic. Ning Fan felt like he was in a dream. Everything that happened in this place made him feel like he was dreaming. Only in a dream would all kinds of illogical things appear. Only a dream would give people the feeling that it was close yet far away. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. Following this train of thought, he instantly understood many things and gradually understood this world. So that's how it is. This world in the painting is actually a world of dreams. From the moment I stepped into this place, even though I woke up, it was as if I had entered a dream. Everything that I saw was the representation of my memories in the dream. However, there were also many things that were not part of my memories. For example, I did not complete the 9 worlds in reality, but I saw the complete 9 worlds here. I have never seen that strange man before, but I saw him in this dream. Those are not my memories and they are not my dreams alone. From this point of view, not only can this world integrate my memories, it can also integrate the memories of others to form a complete dream. Just now when I thought of the Eastern Heaven, I appeared in the Eastern Heaven. If this place is a dream, then there is an explanation. Among the mortals, there is a saying called lucid dream. It allows one to stay awake in the dream and freely control the development of the things in the dream. My current state seems to be very similar to this lucid dream. If this place is really my dream, then I can achieve all my wishes in this dream. For example, I hope that in this dream, the cultivation base of the three bloodlines of the divine bloodline, demon bloodline and devil bloodline will all reach the level of Jie Shui. Just as this thought emerged in Ning Fan's mind, his cultivation base suddenly changed. Jie Shui's cultivation base did not change, but his ancient devil cultivation base broke through from the 8th nirvana of the heavenly devil to the peak of the 12th nirvana in an instant. At the next moment, he continued to break through and reached the ancestral atavism realm. The ancient devil cultivation base, the first level of ancestral atavism. It was actually comparable to the first eternal tribulation. Is this the power of the ancestral atavism ancient devil? Feeling his physical body which had become countless times stronger, Ning Fan's eyes were slightly shocked. Of course, he knew that the increase in his cultivation base was fake. If he wakes up from the dream, all the growth would disappear. Even so, this place was still a little unbelievable. Being able to gain a chance to comprehend the ancestral atavism, ancient devil cultivation base, would certainly be greatly beneficial to him when he tries to break through the bottleneck of the ancient devil realm in the future. The cultivation base of the ancient gods and ancient demons also skyrocketed, reaching the first level of eternal tribulation. Ning Fan could feel the surging power in his body. However, he could not comprehend the process of how his cultivation base skyrocketed. In reality, the heart tribulation of renunciation did not descend upon him. In the dream, he also did not experience the heart tribulation of renunciation, and directly obtained the cultivation base of the ancient gods and ancient demons who had experienced the first level of eternal tribulation. Even though this place is a dream where I can imagine my cultivation base to my heart's content, there must be a limit to this imagination. This is a world created by the progenitor of the Golden Talisman Palace. It must also be limited by his cultivation base. Ning Fan tried to increase the cultivation base of the 4 bloodlines. However, he could only increase the cultivation base of the 4 bloodlines to the peak 9 tribulation immortal emperor realm respectively. If he wanted to increase it further, he could no longer do it no matter what. Oh. Little friend Ning has just entered the painting world for a while, and you've already seen through the essence of the dream in the painting? Outside the painting world, Mu Song and Xiang Bozi felt the changes of the Tao laws on the giant painting. Even though they could not see what Ning Fan had done, they could make a guess. If they were not mistaken, Ning Fan had already used the characteristics of the dream in the painting world to increase his cultivation base. In this way, it would undoubtedly be much safer for him to walk in the dream world. This is really incredible. When I entered the painting in the past, it took me 10 whole days to see through the essence of the painting world. There are also a large number of cultivators who couldn't see through this even after they died in the painting. However, this young man only used such a short amount of time. Xiang Bozi clicked his tongue in admiration. The highest cultivation base that can be imagined in the painting world is only the peak 9 tribulation immortal emperor realm. With this level of cultivation base, it won't be a problem for this young man to stay alive. However, it won't be easy for him to bring out the thing that I need from the painting world. If he can't open his eyes. Taoist Mu Song, on the other hand, was filled with hope and worry. In the past 4 days, there were just too few cultivators who could open their eyes. If they don't open their eyes, they won't be able to see the thing that Taoist Mu Song needs. Can you see the world that I see? Ning Fan's cultivation base skyrocketed with the help of the illusion in the dream. At this moment he had 4 types of bloodlines stacked together, which almost gave him the combat strength of a first-level quasi-saint. With his current strength, using the God Extermination Shield was no longer just to defend against the attacks of an 8th-level immortal emperor. Ning Fan was quite confident that he could even withstand the attacks of a 2nd-level quasi-saint. I hope to have the speed of the 9th flash of golden light. Ning Fan took a step in the void space. 9 traces of faint golden ripples immediately appeared beneath his feet. His body immediately dashed forward and chased after the ink. At this moment he still did not know what the eye that Mu Song needed was. However, He had a faint premonition that he should be able to find some clues if he catches that drop of ink. The speed of the ninth flash of golden light was too fast. It was a speed that he had never experienced before. It was as if he could reach any point in the eastern heaven from where he was with just a single step. This kind of speed had already gone beyond Ning Fan's understanding. In reality, he was far from being able to achieve such speed. However, he had a rare chance to experience it here. With just a sway of his body, he had already crossed millions of galaxies and stood in front of the ink that was fleeing in a hurry. With a point of his finger, a first-level quasi-Saint Realm heaven-sealing force immediately froze the ink in the starry space. Young Carp. All of a sudden, a stiff voice came from the drop of ink. Then a terrifying temperature erupted from it, directly burning the heaven-sealing technique that was restraining it into nothingness. That was the power of extreme yang. That tiny drop of ink contained a terrifying yang power that was enough to incinerate a first-level quasi-saint. What a strong yang power. This is the origin power of the Tao of Yang. Ning Fan's expression stiffened when he felt the heat waves that blew against his face. He had already heard about what the origin of the Tao was from Taoist Mu Song. He also knew that the yin-yang square seal that he had obtained was a supreme treasure that contained the origin power of the Tao of yin and yang. However, what Ning Fan did not know was that the reason why Taoist Mu Song created the yin-yang square seal in the past was to suppress the origin power of the Tao of yin and yang in the golden sky and the black map. Unfortunately, with Mu Song's second-level quasi-saint realm cultivation base and the power of the yin-yang square seal, he would still be severely injured every time he entered the map. He could only barely survive. Throughout Mu Song's life, he had entered the painting world of the second map 7 times. Each time, he would be severely injured by a ferocious creature in the painting. He had 7 chances to bring the eyeball out of the painting world. However, he only succeeded once. Compared to Mu Song, Sun Lua was much luckier. He had only entered the second map once, and he had successfully brought out an eyeball, causing Mu Song to owe him karma. It was precisely because this map was extremely dangerous that Mu Song was unwilling to enter it himself. He had entered it too many times. Every time he enters the map, his chi would be detected by the ferocious creature. He could only ask someone to do it for him. Moreover, the person he invited must be someone who had never entered the map before. I'm still a little worried about little friend Ning's safety. If those 2 ferocious creatures awaken. Speaking of the ferocious creatures, Xiang Bozi's expression turned unprecedentedly solemn. Don't worry. Those 2 ferocious creatures won't awaken when ordinary people enter the painting world. The price they have to pay for their awakening is extremely high. Unless they smell the scent of a quasi-saint's primordial spirit, they definitely won't attack the intruder. Besides, even if an accident happens and the ferocious creatures awaken, you and I are already prepared. We can forcefully drag little friend Ning out of the painting world with our combined strength. If the ferocious creatures don't awaken, with little friend Ning's improved cultivation base and sword techniques that can sever the origin of Tao, it's enough for him to dominate the painting world. Taoist Mu Song said confidently. The only thing he was worried about was that Ning Fan would not be able to open his eyes in the end. However, he was not worried that Ning Fan would be in danger. That ink seemed to be enraged by Ning Fan's heaven-sealing technique. The yang power around its body became stronger and stronger. The starry sky in the void was actually ignited by that yang power, and began to burn. The place where Ning Fan was standing had become the place where the yang power gathered. The space in the void had actually melted into a bright red liquid. If it wasn't for his current cultivation base that had skyrocketed, and if it wasn't for the God-exterminating shield protecting him, he would certainly be burned into ashes by this yang power. Ein Seal Phoenix freezing sky suppress. Without any hesitation, Ning Fan pointed his finger forward. Immediately, an extremely sharp ray of treasure light shot out and shook the starry sky. This seal was none other than the yin-yang four-right seal that he had obtained from Old Wu. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base, when he activated the first transformation of this seal, for bone-chilling cries of phoenixes immediately resounded. The half of the starry sky where Ning Fan was standing was instantly filled with boundless cold yin power, blocking the yang power that the ink was emitting. Half of the starry sky was filled with extreme yang power, while the other half was filled with extreme yin power. The two forces began to cancel each other out, causing the yang power that filled the sky to be weakened by more than 50%. Then Ningfan raised his hand and summoned the memory-severing Dao sword. He activated the sword technique of the Dao-slaying divine sword and slashed forward. With his current comprehension of the Dao-slaying divine sword, it would probably be very difficult for him to cut off such a terrifying yang power without the help of the yin-yang four-right seal. Fortunately, his cultivation base had skyrocketed. The power of this sword attack was also extraordinary. It directly split the densely intertwined Dao origin of yang in half. The surrounding Dao origin of yang power had already been weakened by the yin-yang four-right seal in the first place. How could it still withstand Ningfan's sword attack? All of a sudden, it collapsed like a collapsing mountain. The half of the sky where the ink was actually fell into a frenzied state of collapse in an instant. I can't defeat it. That ink seemed to be afraid of Ningfan. It no longer wanted to continue the battle. With a flash, it directly vanished from the collapsing starry sky. The commotion in the surroundings gradually subsided. Ningfan kept the treasure seal and the Dao sword. Then he spread his spirit sense to search for the ink's whereabouts. However, his efforts were in vain. That ink disappeared as if it had evaporated in a dream. What was even more troublesome was that the spiritual objects around Ningfan began to change. Gradually, they returned to the scenery of the Ning clan in Haining. Standing in the city of the Ning clan in Haining, Ningfan's eyes were filled with confusion for a moment. His cultivation base had returned to the level when he just entered the painting world. A part of his memory seemed to have been forcefully erased. He actually could not remember fighting against that strange ink just now. His memory seemed to have returned to the moment when he just entered the painting world. This is the Ning clan in Haining. Ningfan's eyes turned slightly solemn. I've clearly stepped into the painting world. Why would I appear here? Are all the scenes here an illusion? Ningfan had a strange feeling. He had a feeling that he had said the same words before. He seemed to have seen the same scene somewhere before. Why would he have such a strange thought? He could not remember. Then he began to search around the place like when he just entered the painting world. What he saw was naturally still an empty city without a single soul. After that, he began to explore the other lower worlds. Then he appeared in the eastern heaven. After that, he met a strange person. After that, he saw that strange ink. After that, he heard the sound of water dripping and a woman's voice that was incomparably familiar, yet strange at the same time. Little butterfly, don't sleep anymore. Quickly wake up. Little butterfly, don't sleep anymore. Don't sleep anymore. Why did she ask me not to sleep again? Ningfan's eyes immediately turned solemn. Then he was at a loss for a moment. There was a feeling of discomfort in his heart, but he could not find the source of it. Thus, he discovered the mysteriousness of the dream in this place for the second time. He increased his cultivation base and chased after the ink for the second time. After that, he forgot everything for the third time and appeared in the Ning clan in Haining. Just like that, the cycle repeated itself. At this moment, Ningfan, who was trapped in the painting world, still did not know that there were 3,000 layers in the painting world. In the deepest part of the 3,000 layers, there was a skeleton of a giant in the void. The skeleton was wearing golden armor. It stood upright and still maintained the posture of pointing at the heavens before it died. There were 2 light pillars around the giant skeleton. Both of the light pillars were entangled with countless chains. Each of them was chained to a carp that was as huge as a cultivation planet. One of them was black while the other was white. Both of them were sleeping with their eyes closed. Around the 2 giant carps, there were also many white and black dots of ink swimming around. Your Majesty, there are cultivators from the outside world trying to break into the world. A white dot suddenly swam towards the giant carp and reported. Another cultivator from the outside world came in? What's his cultivation base? The giant white carp did not even bother to open its eyes. It looked indifferent. The giant black carp, on the other hand, opened its eyes slightly and asked in a sinister tone. Your Majesty, that cultivator seems to only have the cultivation base of an eternal tribulation. An eternal tribulation? He's nothing but an ant. This person's primordial spirit probably doesn't have any taste. You guys can share it among yourselves. Don't disturb my slumber anymore. The giant black carp snorted coldly and closed its eyes impatiently. Seeing that, the white duck who wanted to continue reporting shut its mouth helplessly. It originally wanted to report to the king that the cultivator who entered this place this time should not be underestimated. He actually defeated the Dao carp who was ranked 4th in the Dao carp army. If it wasn't because that cultivator could not get out of the infinite samsara of the painting world, he would have probably caught up to the carp and killed it. Forget it. Since the kings are too lazy to deal with this cultivator, I can only let my subordinates deal with him. Chapter 975. The 12th time he dreamt of returning to the Ning family in Haining. The 24th time he dreamt of returning to the Ning family in Haining. The 36th time he dreamt of returning to the Ning family in Haining. The 48th time he dreamt of returning to the Ning city in Haining. Ning Fan felt like he had fallen into a dream. However, he could not get out of it no matter how hard he tried. He returned to the Ning city in Haining again and again. Is it my illusion? I feel like I have experienced this scene many times. On the 49th time he dreamt of returning to the Ning family in Haining. Ning Fan frowned deeply. For the first time, he raised his head and looked at the sky. The sky was gray. There seemed to be something hiding under the gray sky that was peeking at him. He covered his eyes with the green light of the heavens, but he could not see anything under the gray sky. I feel like there's a gaze hiding under the gray sky. Is it an illusion? In fact, there was indeed a gaze hiding in the gray sky. When it saw Ning Fan looking at the sky, it was slightly surprised. This is the first level of the 3000 painting worlds. It is the 49th dream that this person has been trapped in this level. On the 49th dream, he finally noticed my gaze. Unfortunately, this person can't open his eyes. Without seeing the true world, he can't see my Dao Carp school and can't get out of this endless dream. He can only be trapped in this place. Without opening his eyes, the two great kings probably won't make a move unless he's a quasi-saint. The troublesome thing is that this person can see through the mysteries of the dream of this world, allowing his cultivation base to skyrocket. Moreover, he also has a mysterious technique that is comparable to the power of the Dao origin. In this case, with my strength which is ranked 4th in the Dao Carp school, I'm still no match for him. Has help not arrived yet? The 50th time he dreamt of returning to the eastern sky. The 51st time, the 52nd time, the 60th time. Ning Fan once again arrived at the eastern sky and forced the black ink dot to retreat. Once again, he heard the voice of the lady that he seemed to have forgotten. Little butterfly, stop sleeping. Wake up. Stop sleeping. Stop sleeping. Ning Fan frowned deeply. He felt that it was not the first time he had heard this voice. In fact, he had heard it many times. This place gives me a very strange feeling. It's as if I've been doing the same thing over and over again, like the dot that is trapped in a circle. I've walked round after round but I still can't get out of this circle. The 5 senses can deceive people, and so can memories. Only karma cannot be deceived. Others may not be able to see karma, but with my eyesight of the second realm of heaven realm, I can see it very clearly. Ning Fan stretched out his hand and made a grabbing motion at the boundless starry sky. Immediately, tens of karma threads appeared. One side of these karma threads was connected to his body, while the other side seemed to be connected to the depths of the void. These were the karmic threads that were formed between Ning Fan and the ink. There were a total of 60 karmic threads. What is this young man doing? The gaze that was hidden between heaven and earth was perplexed. It could not see the cause and effect. Thus, it could not understand what Ning Fan had caught by grabbing the void. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn as he confirmed his speculation. 60 karmic threads. In other words, I've already clashed with that strange ink 60 times. As expected, this isn't the first time I've experienced this. Instead, I've been repeating it over and over again. This painting realm is really scary. It can actually make me experience 60 repetitive dreams without me knowing it. Fortunately, I can see the cause and effect. If I follow the cause and effect, I will definitely be able to walk out from this endless dream. Ning Fan raised his right hand and pressed his 5 fingers in the direction where the karmic threads were connected to. Immediately, a vast force pressed down in that direction. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base that had greatly increased, the hollow space in front of him was forcefully torn apart from the middle when he pressed down. A drop of black ink fell out of the crack in the hollow space with a muffled groan. Impossible. You haven't even opened your eyes. How could you find my hiding place? That drop of ink said in disbelief. Ning Fan, of course, would not answer the ink's question. Without saying anything else, he directly took out the yin-yang square seal and smashed it at the drop of ink. After being smashed, the drop of ink let out a muffled groan and retreated continuously in the starry sky. It actually revealed its true form after being injured. The original form of this drop of ink was a white carp that was 10 zhang in size. That drop of ink was the white carp's eye. Could it be that what Senior Musang wants me to take is this carp's eye? Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly serious as he made a guess. You're just a foreign cultivator. How dare you pretend to be a disciple of the Golden Talisman Palace and sneak into the painting world? According to your crime, you should first gouge out your eyes and grind them into ink. After that, you should slaughter your primordial spirit and feed it to my Dao Carp lineage. It won't be easy for me to kill you alone without any help. In that case, I can only use my natal golden talisman. As the 4th Carp General of the Dao Carp clan, summon the left side of the golden talisman and kill this cultivator. When the white carp's true form was revealed by Ning Fan's seal, it was instantly enraged. It opened its mouth and spat out a ray of golden light. Under the golden light, it was actually an ancient and damaged talisman paper. The 4 corners of the talisman paper were drawn with ancient and obscure runes. At the center of the talisman paper, there was a word Gui that was scribbled with cinnabar. This is... Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. He actually sensed an extremely dangerous feeling from this damaged talisman paper. Besides, this word Gu seems very familiar. As the 4th Carp General of the Dao Carp clan, summon the right side of the golden talisman and seal this cultivator. The white carp spat out another ray of golden light. This time, it was still an ancient talisman paper under the golden light. However, this time the word inch was written on the talisman paper. Gu and inch combined to form a seal. This is a power that is similar to the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict. Ning Fan's sense of danger became even stronger. These 2 talisman papers obviously contained a power that was not any weaker than the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict. One should know that after the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict sealed the desolate world, even first-level quasi-saints like the ancient Heavenly Connection Emperor and the true Dragon Clan's leader could not force their way into the desolate world. It was enough to show how powerful the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict was. The 2 talisman papers in front of Ning Fan actually had a sealing power that was not any weaker than the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict. How could he underestimate it? Seal. Bai Li shouted coldly, and the 2 talismans immediately merged into one. In an instant, a vermilion light swept across the starry sky. Everywhere the vermilion light passed, the great ways of the heavens were sealed. Above the great ways, a layer of vermilion ice appeared as if it had solidified, freezing the operation of the great ways. That ray of light shot towards Ning Fan. When it was 100 zhang away from Ning Fan, it suddenly turned into a huge net that was big enough to cover the entire starry sky. It sealed all of Ning Fan's escape routes. Ning Fan activated the yin and yang square seal and attacked the huge net. This seal was an innate magic treasure. Its aura was naturally heaven-shaking. Once the seal was cast, heaven and earth would tremble. The force of the attack could even make the starry sky tremble. Even though the force of the attack was great, when it hit the net, it was like a fist hitting a piece of cotton. It could not break the seal with brute force and stop the net from descending. Instead, it was dyed with a layer of red light by the huge net. Then, a word seal, that was as red as blood appeared on the surface of the treasure seal. The power of the Tao origin within the seal was forcefully sealed at this moment, no longer able to exert its power. The golden talisman of my golden talisman palace can seal everything in the world. It is especially good at restraining all kinds of magic treasures. In the great Tao of the world, everything has always been subduing something else. This young man's innate treasure seal is not weak. It is actually close to the mid-grade innate treasure seal. Unfortunately, it can only be restrained by my golden talisman, which is connected to my life. Bai Li thought disdainfully. Seeing that the yin and yang square seal could not even slightly stop the huge net, Ning Fan's expression became even more solemn. Without saying a word, he directly activated the power of the God Exterminating Shield and summoned the golden flame shadow of the God Exterminating Giant outside his body. Currently, his 4 elemental cultivation bases had all risen to the peak 9th tribulation realm. When the 4 powers overlapped, he could exert the strength of a first-level quasi-saint. Using the God Exterminating Shield with such a cultivation base, the God Exterminating Giant that he summoned was naturally incomparably powerful. The God Exterminating Giant held the shield in its left hand and slightly bent its body. With a roar, it immediately dashed forward like a cannonball. Wherever it passed by, the Tao laws would be shattered. The disdain in Bai Li's eyes became even more obvious. He could vaguely tell that Ning Fan had borrowed the power of some kind of magic treasure in order to summon this protective giant outside his body. The power of a magic treasure? Huh? The Golden Imperial Talisman of the Golden Talisman Palace is the bane of all magic treasures in the world. This young man's magic treasure will certainly be sealed by the Golden Imperial Talisman in an instant. However, the development of the situation was completely out of Bai Li's expectation. With a loud bang, Ning Fan brutally smashed a huge hole in the huge vermilion red net, which was large enough to cover the entire sky. There were even golden flames burning on the hole. This net could easily seal the attack of the yin and yang square seal, but it could not stop the impact of the God Exterminating Shield. Ning Fan continued to control the God Exterminating Giant to charge forward. In just a few breaths' time, the huge net was shattered into pieces, turning into cinnabar and dissipating. As soon as the huge net was broken, the talisman paper that was originally put together trembled and separated from the middle. Its spiritual light dimmed significantly. It seemed like the talisman paper had suffered a great backlash because its attack was broken by Ning Fan. Bai Li and the Golden Imperial Talisman had a connection of life. Thus, the backlash he suffered was even more severe. The Golden Imperial Talisman of the Golden Talisman Palace was truly connected to one's life. If the talisman is damaged, the cultivator would also suffer severe injuries. Because this talisman was related to one's life, it could not be used casually. That was why Bai Li did not use it just now. If it wasn't because Ning Fan was too difficult to deal with, Bai Li would certainly not use this talisman. Due to the damage to the talisman, Bai Li's chi was directly weakened by 1/3. His expression became even more shocked. Impossible. How could the Golden Imperial Talisman, which is the bane of magic treasures, be destroyed by this young man's magic treasure? I am a Tao carp that was formed from a 10th grade Emperor grade Tao soul. The grade of this Golden Imperial Talisman has even reached the mid-grade innate grade. Under its restraint, it would still have a great advantage even when facing a high-grade innate magic treasure. Even if I can't defeat it, I won't lose so easily. The magic treasure that this young man is using is obviously a defensive magic treasure. Its offensive power isn't its advantage. How could it break the seal of the Golden Imperial Talisman head-on? Could it be that this young man is actually using a supreme-grade innate magic treasure that only saints are qualified to use? As soon as he thought of this possibility, Bai Li's expression turned extremely ugly. In terms of cultivation base, Ning Fan's cultivation base had increased and he could display the strength of a first-level quasi-saint. As for Bai Li, his cultivation base was weakened by 1/3 due to the backlash of his magic treasure. Compared to Ning Fan, he was already at a disadvantage in terms of cultivation base. In terms of abilities, he was proficient in using the origin of the Yang Dao to attack his enemies, and the Golden Imperial Talisman that was connected to one's life to seal his enemies. Today, however, both of them were destroyed by Ning Fan. Damn it! Why haven't the reinforcements arrived yet? It's absolutely impossible for me to kill this young man alone. If I continue to fight, my life will be in danger. Bai Li was shocked. He opened his mouth and swallowed the golden imperial talisman back into his stomach. He did not dare to use it again as he was afraid that the talisman would be damaged and suffer another backlash. After that, his body flickered and vanished like ink. He actually fled once again, not daring to fight against Ning Fan. Trying to run away? The god-destroying giant made a grabbing motion with his huge hand. The karmic thread that connected Ning Fan and Bai Li immediately appeared with extreme clarity. Following the direction of the karmic thread, the god-destroying giant dashed out and directly crashed into the boundless void space. Then he appeared in another world. It was no longer the scene of the 4 heavens and 9 worlds. Instead, it was a vast stretch of black land with no end in sight. Above him was a boundless golden sky. This place was the 2nd level of the painting realm. Bai Li was resting in this level. When he saw Ning Fan actually chasing him to this level, his expression changed drastically. Impossible. You didn't open your eyes and you didn't find the way to the 2nd level. You actually used brute force to crash your way in. Bai Li was shocked. Then, he once again fled towards the 3rd level of the painting realm. His speed of escaping was really fast. Ning Fan, of course, would not let this white carp escape. Previously, this carp wanted to kill him. Now he had to pay the price. As the god-destroying giant rammed into Bai Li, he directly opened a path in the golden sky and black land. He chased him all the way to the 3rd level, the 4th level, the 5th level. After all, the white carp's cultivation base was comparable to a 1st-level quasi-saint. Ning Fan had caught up to him many times. However, he lacked the means to severely injure a 1st-level quasi-saint. He could only use brute force to injure the white carp again and again. However, he could not harm his life at all. The white carp continued to flee. Logically speaking, his injuries should be getting more and more severe as he kept getting injured. However, the strange thing was that the deeper he went into the painting realm, the lighter his injuries became. His aura force also increased slightly. On the other hand, Ning Fan's aura was getting increasingly suppressed the deeper he went into the painting realm. Foolish cultivator. How dare you still chase after me? Fine. Continue chasing me if you have the ability. If I can enter the 1000th level and above, I can instantly recover from these minor injuries. With the enhancement of my aura, I might not lose to you whose cultivation base is being suppressed. Moreover, if I can summon some reinforcements from the deeper regions, killing you certainly won't be as difficult as before. When the white carp saw that Ning Fan could not kill him even after so long, he could not help but feel slightly relieved. While he was fleeing, he would occasionally let out strange roars as if he was calling for reinforcements. This place is a little strange. The deeper I go, the stronger the suppression I feel. On the other hand, this carp is actually like a fish in water. Green light flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. He could vaguely tell that the true form of this white carp was an existence similar to the Tao soul of the heavenly Tao. It was not a demon beast. All of a sudden, Ning Fan understood something. The deeper he goes into the painting realm, the stronger the aura of living beings like the Tao soul would be, while the suppression on cultivators would become stronger. I can't go any further. I have to think of a way to kill this carp as soon as possible. At the very least, I have to seize its eyes. If I'm late, something unexpected might happen. I'm not a true quasi-saint realm expert. My cultivation base is just an illusion. It's very difficult to kill this quasi-saint Tao carp with my fake cultivation base. If I really can't kill this carp and seize its eyes, I'm afraid I can only retreat and leave this world. In short, I must not enter the deeper regions of the painting realm. The deeper he went, the more Ning Fan could sense that there were many ferocious qi hidden in the depths of the painting realm. There were no less than 10 of them whose strength was comparable to immortal emperors. There were also a few quasi-saint realm qi like the white carps. Among them, there were even 2 of them. Even though they were not as strong as Yin Mo, they were much stronger than Musang. They were actually the qi of 2nd-level quasi-saints. Moreover, they were not ordinary 2nd-level quasi-saints. For some reason, when these 2 qi, one yin and the other yang, were placed together, they actually gave Ning Fan a sense of danger that was equivalent to a 3rd-level quasi-saint. Ning Fan was inwardly shocked. The deeper regions of the painting realm were probably extremely dangerous. With his current cultivation base, it was better for him not to go there and court death. 100 floors, 200 floors, 300 floors, 900 floors. Half of the white carp's injuries had already recovered. He even used a secret technique to detect that there were reinforcements not far away from him. Oh, the top 3 generals' carp have all come out. In this case, even if the 2 kings don't take action, we still have 4 first-level quasi-saints to besiege this young man. We will certainly be able to kill him here. This young man's true cultivation base isn't high. Of course, his primordial spirit won't be tasty. However, if we can seize the supreme grade innate magic treasure in his hands and offer it to the 2 kings, it will certainly be a great contribution. Bai Li sneered. The scales of victory had already begun to tilt towards his side. Ning Fan's senses were extremely sharp. He could sense that other than Bai Li, there were actually 3 other quasi-saints Qi that were approaching him at high speed. This is troublesome. It seems like not only will I not be able to kill Bai Li this time, I might even be besieged by the 4 quasi-saints. It seems like I won't be able to get the fisheye that Senior Musang needs. Ning Fan sighed softly. When he arrived at the 900th floor of the painting realm, his cultivation base was nearly suppressed by half. If he is besieged by 4 quasi-saints again, he would probably be in a situation where he would most likely die even if he has the god-destroying shield to protect himself. Moreover, there were 2 even more terrifying Qi lurking in the deeper regions of the painting realm. No wonder so many old monsters died here. The dangers and strangeness of this place are definitely not ordinary. The 922nd floor of the painting realm. Ning Fan did not continue to chase after Bai Li after chasing him all the way to this place. He sighed softly and kept the god-destroying giant's Dharma image. Then he turned around and left. Seeing that Ning Fan actually stopped chasing after him, Bai Li secretly scolded him for being cunning. If Ning Fan chased after him for a while longer, he would be able to besiege him with the other quasi-saint generals. Humph! You've been chasing after me all the way, and now you want to leave after killing me? How can there be such a good thing in this world? When Bai Li saw that Ning Fan wanted to run away, he turned around and chased after him while cursing and swearing. His tone was incomparably savage, as if he wanted to provoke Ning Fan into fighting him. The coldness in Ning Fan's eyes became colder and colder. He was not afraid of a single Bai Li. However, if there are 3 more of them, he also did not have the confidence to escape unscathed. Thus, he could only let Bai Li curse at him. Inwardly, however, he was more or less depressed. Master, please let Black Devil fight. The cold voice of a young lady suddenly resounded in Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. It was actually the heavenly Dao Black Cat that Ning Fan had subdued previously. It was challenging Ning Fan to a battle. The Black Cat was originally sleeping soundly in the profound Yin West world. However, it sensed Ning Fan's depression. My master seems to be being bullied. The one who bullied my master seems to be a mere Dao Carp? Courting death. Courting death. A mere Dao Carp actually dares to bully my master. You want to fight? You can talk? Ning Fan was slightly surprised. Ever since he subdued the Black Cat, it was his first time hearing it speak. It turned out that it was not that this Black Cat could not talk. It just did not like to talk. If it wasn't because she saw Ning Fan being bullied this time, and if it wasn't because she was enraged when she saw her master being humiliated, she would certainly not speak. Her personality was one of the most reticent people. The Black Cat did not say anything else. The battle intent that erupted from its body was overwhelming. There was no need for words to express its willingness to fight. You might not be a match for that, Bai Li. Ning Fan transmitted his voice to the Black Cat tactfully. Both the Black Cat and the White Carp were heavenly Dao souls. However, their levels were vastly different. The grade of the White Carp's Dao soul was extremely high. Since it could display the cultivation base of a quasi-saint realm expert, it was naturally not an ordinary one. The Black Cat, on the other hand, was different. She was originally the heavenly Dao soul of the wild wilderness. However, because the heavenly Dao of the wild wilderness was broken, her strength was not that strong. If the White Carp was a 10th grade Emperor grade heavenly Dao soul, The black cat was probably just a second-grade emperor-grade heavenly Tao soul. Compared to the white carp, there was a gap of 8 levels between them. In Ning Fan's opinion, the black cat was not a match for the white carp. Thus, he naturally did not wish for the black cat to go out and seek death. Master, believe me, I can do it. The black cat, who did not like to talk, forced herself to speak again. Her will was extremely firm. Ning Fan, who cultivated the battle yin-yang cultivation technique, could sense her strong will. I won't allow my master to be humiliated. I won't allow it. If anyone dares to bully my master, I will avenge my master even if I have to go against the heavens. Believe me, I can do it. Master, please believe me. Could it be that this black cat has some kind of secret technique that can hurt the white carp? Ning Fan guessed inwardly. There was a sense of confidence on the black cat's body. It was as if she really did not put the white carp in her eyes. With that in mind, Ning Fan no longer tried to escape. He stopped at the 914th floor and stared at the white carp, who was chasing after him with cold eyes. Oh, you're not going to escape anymore? Are you resigned to your fate? The white carp sneered. I have a servant who wants to fight against you. I want to let her have a try. Ning Fan said calmly. There was still some time left. If the black cat could not hurt the white carp, he still had time to escape. Humph! Even you are not a match for me. How can your servant be a match for me? The white carp sneered even more. However, at the next moment, he could no longer laugh. Ning Fan bent his palm and summoned a ray of black light. It was a black cat that was the size of a palm. The chi of this black cat was definitely not strong enough to make the white carp afraid. The appearance of this black cat was not ferocious. However, as soon as it appeared, the initially arrogant white carp actually felt fear for the first time. The white carp felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Even his bones felt cold. He could not imagine that the servant that Ning Fan mentioned was actually such a terrifying and ferocious creature. 9 Raccoon. It's actually the 9 Raccoon Dao Soul that is ranked 4th among the 10 great Dao Soul clans in the 3 worlds. The 9 Raccoon was very special. Before it transformed, it did not have any cultivation base. It could only fuse with other cultivators to increase their cultivation base. However, even if it was a 9 Raccoon that had yet to transform, it was still enough to make most of the Dao Soul clans tremble in fear. It was because the 9 Raccoon clan used other heavenly Dao Souls as food. Most of the members of the Dao Soul clan would be suppressed by the bloodline of the 9 Raccoon clan. Among them, the Dao Carp clan was the one that suffered the greatest suppression. Cats eat fish. This was the most basic law of heaven and earth. The Dao Carp clan was the favorite food of the 9 Raccoon clan. Not good. Even though this 9 Raccoon is just a 2nd level emperor grade beast, it's enough to kill me. The white carp, who was initially extremely arrogant, actually turned into a panicked expression. He turned around and fled with all his might. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.